request everyone to take the seat. We'll be starting the event. Also, I will request everyone to keep their phone on silent and enjoy the evening. Thank you. Okay, so namaste, सभी को मेरा सादर प्रणाम. I am Anurag Sharma from Infinity Foundation India, and today is the day that marks the beginning of Navratri. And on this auspicious day, we feel delighted to hold this event to release the book Snakes in the Ganga Breaking India 2.0, authored by Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji and Srimati Vijaya Viswanathan ji. I welcome you all. I feel delighted to welcome you all to the event. So, first of all, I would like to invite our dignitaries on the stage. May I request our chief guest for the event, respected Shri Dattatreya Hosabale ji, current General Secretary of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, to kindly come and grace us with his presence on the stage. I request everyone to please welcome him with a big round of applause. May I now request our keynote speaker for today, Shri Swapan Das Gupta ji, former member of Rajya Sabha, to kindly come and have a seat on the stage. May I now request our distinguished panelists for today, Shri Prakash Singh ji, former police chief and DG BSF, to kindly come on the stage and have a seat. May I now request our moderator for the panel discussion, Shri Anand Narsimhan ji, managing editor and senior anchor at Network 18, to kindly come and have a seat on the stage. And Shri Sudhanshu Trivedi ji will be joining us a little later. May I also request the authors, Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji and Srimati Vijaya Viswanathan ji, to kindly come and have a seat on the stage. I would now request all our distinguished guests and authors to kindly come towards the lamps for the Deep Prajwalan ceremony to light the lamps. I would also like to invite from the audience Dr. Nagesh Bhandari ji, founder and president of the Indus University, Ahmedabad, Shri Daksh Lohia ji, professor of astrophysics, Delhi University, and Srimati Shilpa Memani ji, managing director, Vanya Herbals, to kindly come on the stage for the Prajwalan ceremony and light the lamps.
नागेश भाई नमस्ते नमस्ते जी प्लीज
I would also like to request Shri Chamu Krishna Shastri ji to kindly come the stage for the Prajwalan ceremony. Thank you. So Sudhanshu Trivedi ji is here. I would request everyone to please welcome him. May I now request our chief guest, Shri Dattatreya Hosabale ji, to formally release the book Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0. I would also request other distinguished guests and the authors to kindly open and hold the book towards the audience for a first look. I would now like to invite the editor of the book, Sanjana Roy Chaudhary, to address the gathering with her opening statement and share her thoughts about the book.
Thank you, Anurag. Good evening. On behalf of Infinity Foundation, I welcome you all to the release of Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0 by Rajiv, Malhotra and Vijaya Viswanathan. It is a pleasure to have you here with us this evening. I extend a warm welcome to the esteemed guests on stage and a wonderful audience. Snakes in the Ganga is an important book for a number of reasons. It uncovers uncomfortable truths about anti-Hindu/anti-Hinduism agendas being promoted to launch a multi-pronged attack on India. Harvard University is the fertile ground, a laboratory, so to say, where these damaging theories are being developed hand in hand with Indian scholars, activists, and others. Most shockingly, several Indian billionaires lend their family names and donate millions of dollars that go toward encouraging these very agendas. Some elite universities being set up by them within India as now emerging as the base for spreading a culture and ideas that further these false propagandas. The authors provide detailed analysis and substantiated evidence to validate these theories. The play of smoke and mirrors lays bare. Snakes in the Ganga is a meticulously researched book. Many will be disturbed. Many will be shaken to their core by the revelations, while some may be fearful. When that happens, and murmurs can already be heard to that effect, the book will have succeeded in what it set out to do, simply to show facts that remain veiled. The book is a wake-up call for us to introspect and take a stand on issues that affect us as a civilization, a society, weakens our cultural heritage, and India's position as teacher to the world. Getting to this point of seeing Snakes in the Ganga being released this evening is most satisfying. It has been several months of hard work, but there was one and only one goal, and that was for the book to be the best in every way. And the hard work bore fruit. Even before the book hit the market in its physical form, 2 high 5-figure print runs were sold out in pre-orders. Congratulations to the authors for that. Rajiv Malhotra's work, and one can call it a mission, having pursued it over the last 30 years, has a phenomenal following. There is no doubting the fact that the ideas, the sounds, the words in the book, and its mission will make an impact that will be felt the world over. Today is indeed quite historic in one way, as Rajiv and I were discussing downstairs, because exactly 10 years ago, To this day, we released Breaking India. And today is a sort of sequel to that. And Mr. Ajit Doval had released it at the Vivekananda International Foundation. Infinity Foundation, if I may say so myself, is a group of very special people under Rajiv's guidance toward one end. Their commitment, their expertise, and knowledge is rare. They all have played an invaluable part in making this evening the success that it is. Snakes in the Ganga is a special book. The response to it is special. As we celebrate our great country's 75 years of independence, a country that is the crucible of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the authors contribute in this celebration with this meaningful and path-breaking book. And I sincerely hope all of you pick up a copy to join this celebration and give the book the impetus it truly deserves. Thank you.
I would like to express my deep gratitude for our chief guest for the event, Shri Dattatreya Hosabaleji, current General Secretary of RSS, for taking time to grace this occasion with his presence. To briefly introduce Shri Dattatreya ji, after his post-graduation in English literature from Bangalore University, he became a full-time worker of ABVP. He worked in student movements for nearly 3 decades. He was National General Secretary and Organizing Secretary of ABVP. He became a full-time pracharak of RSS and served as Sah Bauddhik Pramukh and Sah Sarkaryawaha, Joint General Secretary of RSS. Currently, he is General Secretary of RSS. May I now invite Shri Dattaji Hosabale to kindly come and address the gathering. Thank you.
At the outset, I extend my warm greetings to all of you and your family members, relatives and friends. A very happy Navaratri and Dasara, the Vijayadashmi day, which is going to come after 9 nights or 9 days. Vijayadashmi and Navaratri, they are symbolic of the victory of the triumph of good and dharma over evil or adharma. And I firmly believe that Rajiv Malhotra ji has taken up this as his life mission to establish dharma over adharma. Nearly a month ago, Raju ji called me and he asked me to be in this function. I said, I am not a person to be in the midst of such eminent people who are writers, thinkers, thought leaders. I am an ordinary humble worker of an organization. So I expressed I will be attending the function. I will sit among the audience. But Rajuji was, generally he is kind, but he was not kind enough to allow me. It's really wonderful to be in the midst of all of you today. Very important and significant event is taking place through the launching of this book. Because this is the need of the hour, not only for India or Bharat, also for entire humanity. Because this mission of saving India and to declare that India is not for sale is not only in the interest of India, it is in the interest of mankind. Through this book, Rajiv Malhotra ji has once again proved that India's interest is uppermost in his mind. Rajiv ji is known, generally, it is written, it's printed in the book also in its introduction, as a researcher and public intellectual on cross-cultural encounters, etc. But while he is all these things, I want to say that he is deeply and firmly rooted in the great civilizational values of Hindu philosophy. That's what makes me not only admire him, but respect him. He is a modern time rishi. Rajiv ji speaks his mind without fear or favor. His writings are on the basis of hard research, which we all know very well. His academic rigor should be example for all researchers in universities. Rajiv ji is uncompromising in his arguments. These words, that unveiling uncomfortable truths, he enjoys in that. His conviction exudes confidence in others. On many occasions when I was discussing with him, not only that I do a lot of knowledge, but a sort of confidence. See, generally people, अब क्या हो गया, अब तो होगा नहीं, we can't do it, what will happen, complaining, defeating. Such mentality generally we see among people when things are not up to the mark which they expect. But Rajiv ji has been continuously, consistently, repeatedly he has been telling, ठीक है वो तो है, but what we can do to change it. That's why I feel that his conviction exudes confidence in others. His earlier books like Breaking India, Being Different, Indra's Net, book on Sanskrit, and other subjects have made the academic world of India and about India highly enriched, and they have shed newer lights on the issues. He has raised some fundamental questions on these issues. He has shaken the very fundamentals which were believed to be sacrosanct. And later on, when those questions and his answers were provided, people started believing, yes, all these years we have been believing something which was not right, which was historically wrong, which we understood in a different way. So, Rajiv ji has provided such knowledge to people who were misguided because of various reasons. His fascinating and original work to expose the networks in academic world that influence with ulterior motives has to be appreciated. The agenda-driven academic projects, many a time supported by Indians also, with or without their knowledge, are surely a matter of serious concern. The Breaking India forces within India and elsewhere in various garbs have to be challenged with academic fervor and counter movements. Rajiv ji, with like-minded persons like Vijaya, Viswanathan and many others, has been eminently doing this stupendous job. I haven't read the new book, Snakes in the Ganga, in detail, because therefore it's a late night, I arrived in Delhi and the book was there on the table, and I tried to flip through that, and yesterday I was away in Haryana for some other program, so it's such a fatty book I cannot read within 2 nights and a day. However, I have flipped through things. Certain opinions in the book may not be acceptable to some, may not be palatable to some others, may be controversial for a few. But nonetheless, he has raised serious issues with his seminal work. His paramount objective is to protect and promote genuine interests of real India. That is unquestionable. That's why people who read this, they should read with this open mind. In this new book also, he has not only cautioned India and Indians about the forces inimical to India's interest, but also has tried to expose the strength and spread of the networks and their capacity to influence. India's grand narrative has to be built on sound foundations with honest research, genuine love for nation, and a deep and comprehensive sense of the ethos of this ancient civilization. Rajiv is doing this great service to our nation in an eminent way. His intellectual leadership is making its right impact in India and outside as well. I congratulate Sri Rajiv Malhotra ji for this noble service to this ancient civilization, which he has been doing without expecting anything in return. May his tribe increase. His rishihood will be an inspiring source for many more to take up this great mission forward. With these words, I once again pay my pranams to Rajiv Malhotra ji, to Vijaya Viswanathan ji, and all others for informing and educating Indians and others about India. I fervently hope that this book will also be received with enthusiasm by the vast intelligentsia, and the object with which it has been written and published will be achieved. I pray Almighty to grant health, energy, and years to Rajiv ji to continue this mission. Thank you, Rajiv Malhotra ji, for inviting me to be a part of this very significant event of launching the book. Namaskar.
We also have with us Shri Swapan Das Gupta ji as the keynote speaker for the event. To introduce him, he is a former member of parliament, a member of the national executive of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and a columnist for major Indian newspapers. He is a PhD in history from the School of Oriental and African Studies, London, and a former research fellow of Nuffield College, Oxford. A journalist for 30 years, he occupied senior editorial positions in Times of India, Indian Express, and India Today. He writes regular columns for Times of India, Telegraph, and Pioneer, and is a commentator on TV networks. He is a member of the Executive Council of Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, a director of India Foundation, and visiting professor at JNU. In 2015, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan by the President of India and nominated to the Rajya Sabha. May I now invite Shri Swapan Das Gupta ji to kindly come and share his thoughts with all of us.
Thank you very much. I'll reserve my comments on the authors till the very end. We've just heard about the authors. So let me come to the subject matter. It's about 1,000 pages, and I've got 10 minutes given to me. So I'll make full use of them. Now, after reading this book, I was reminded, if any of you remember, a film which Satyajit Ray made, one of the only films which he made in Hindi, which was called Shatranj Ke Khilari. Now, in that, there is a very evocative final scene. These two chess players in Awadh, preoccupied with their own games, the moves, the counter moves, the various strategies which can be evolved in chess. While the world around him in 1856, yes, goes on. And we have the final scene of them preoccupied playing their little chess game, while behind them the redcoats, which is the British Army, are marching into Awadh. They are oblivious. They forget. And I think sometimes we in India often behave like the chess players. Not always, but often. We are too preoccupied with our own little interests. We forget the world around us, what is happening. And then we get suddenly stumped by what happened? How did that happen? If you recall, during the COVID crisis, it was a horrible time for every one of us. We all went through various emotional traumas, physical, loss of livelihood, dislocation in different ways, everybody, without exception. It was a crisis which was unexpected. Nobody anticipated it. We tried to manage it in the best way we could. And I think we managed it rather well. But at the same time, if you looked at the narrative in the outside world, you'd have thought that the entire India had become a vast crematorium with bodies being burnt on the streets, with bodies being unattended, with people dying of starvation, riots in the streets. I mean, a fearful scenario was created. Yet, when we formulated probably the world's largest vaccination program, it went largely unsung. Largely unsung. Some people had appreciated it grudgingly, yes. But then pointed out suddenly, but you discriminated against some people. Now, where did this discrimination come in, and where does this narrative come in? And I think this book is very important because it gets to the heart of that narrative, where it's coming from. What are the theoretical premises on which these are based? We often come across this term woke, which is being used quite generously, liberally. And sometimes people ask me, what exactly does it mean? Instead of going into great detail of trying to say it's about critical race theory and things like that, you often say, well, it's taking political correctness to its logical absurdity. Maybe that's a simple way of trying to somehow explain what it's all about. But behind it is this belief that almost every one of you, stand automatically condemned as mini monsters. You stand condemned as a racist. You stand condemned for being sexist. You stand condemned for being oppressive. You stand condemned for many other crimes which we are not even aware of. And why? What is the basis of this? And then you translate this assumption onto the public sphere, and then you get these various narratives which are coming out in the public sphere. And that's why it's very important to read it. And what's important about this book, which both the authors have brought out, is that very lucidly they have actually identified what the theoretical premises. Some of their literature is quite unfamiliar to me, partly because it exists in a very rarefied domain of American academia. It's a very rarefied thing. I don't think it has, the people might be celebrities in their own little domain. They'd probably be unknown anywhere else. But their influence is far greater. And most important is their influence with the entire generations of impressionable Indian students who are going there, who are getting brainwashed, coming to almost have a loathing for their own society, loathing for their own religion, loathing for their own country. And it's that self-hate which they have generated. And what's ironic about this, and what's terrible in my view, is that a lot of these universities are very generously funded by our industrialists. I welcome that funding. There was a time when we were thought to be going out with begging bowls. Okay, now they chase us to see whether our purses are fat enough. There's an inversion. But we are so thrilled sometimes that they are asking us that we forget that we need to have a strategic clout on every money we give. And therefore, we feel flattered to give them the money, and they feel that these people are big suckers. They can be used in any way they want. So we are being generously taken for a ride for our generosity. My appeal to all of them, my good friend Anand Mahindra, to others, these people, they're all good people. They're all excellent people. Is that have some accountability of what you're spending your money on. I'm not saying that you gag everybody. I'm not saying you emulate what the Chinese do. But ask questions. The moment you start asking questions, there will come a sense of accountability that we are not complete walkovers, that we are not pushovers, that this sort of agenda, which is being propagated, which is being nurtured, and in your country, in universities, departments, in centers which are funded by y'all, is not good for our country. And if it is not good for our country, it is not good for your reputation. Today we are asking you with folded arms. Ask for accountability. Tomorrow someone else will not ask you with folded arms. They will actually blame you. Then they'll have things like, so and so must fall, what has happened to Cecil Rhodes now. We don't want that sort of a situation, do we? So I'm asking this thing. Let our investments, and these are investments, have a strategic dimension. The problem with India, the problem with Hindu society sometimes is that we often lack a sense of strategy. I'm asking, in this world, we need to acquire that strategy, a sense of strategy. We need to have a certain deliberation why we are doing certain things. And we need to occasionally, I know, no one says Hinduism is a religion of peace, that is reserved for elsewhere. But sometimes we need to bare our fangs, just to show that we have fangs, we have some teeth. Occasionally, sometimes. Otherwise, they'll fall by the wayside through disuse. It's like playing the Tibet card. People say, play the Tibet card. What Tibet card? You haven't played it for 50 years. What is there left? So, use your things strategically. What Rajiv Malhotra and Mrs. Viswanathan have done is they have actually identified, they have helped us to locate what the problem is. It is for us to look at the counter strategies which we need to approach. They cannot give the counter strategies. They have done a seminal work by documenting it. By documenting it. Documentation is another area which we are very weak normally. Now use that documentation to nurture, to have a policy approach. And this is a policy approach which I think not only civil society, not only the academic community, but even the government of India needs to do something about it. Yes, nowadays we give an advisory or two. We take a dim view when Indians are getting attacked. Earlier we didn't even bother. Yes, but we need to actually, as we increase our global influence, our entire approach needs to change. And we cannot be passive recipients of abuse any longer. Our society is not a football to be kicked around. And it is that which I am appealing should be the conclusion of this book, of what we can do, of the strategies we need to do, of this fearsome assault which has been launched on India, on our civilization, on our country, on our traditions, on everything we believe is good about India is now under assault. It starts off as a small movement, but it takes off. And because the fires are being lit within our own society, that's what the danger is. So take this book seriously. I thank Rajiv Malhotra. I thank Mrs. Viswanathan for taking the time, doing this phenomenally valuable research. I think they've really done us very proud. And I think that this book, of course, it will be pilloried, it will be thrown, it will be, he might even be cancelled a few times. Hopefully, more he gets cancelled, the better it will be. But debate these, debate them, and find out what these ideas are. So next time the assault comes from somewhere, the attack comes from somewhere, you'll know what is the basis on which all this is based on. I thank you very much for the honor, with privilege you've given me of being at the book launch. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful festival. Namaskar.
Thank you, Sopan Das Gupta ji, for sharing your insightful thoughts about the book. We will now begin our panel discussion. Please note that there will be a Q&A session after the panel discussion. I request our audience that in case they want to ask any questions, then kindly write your question on a piece of paper. We have our volunteers who will come and provide paper slips and pen to you. You can hand over the question checks to them after writing your question. Before the panel discussion begins, I would like to introduce the distinguished authors of the book, Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji and Srimati Vijaya Viswanathan ji, and also our distinguished panelists and the moderator for the discussion. I begin with the authors. Introducing Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji. Shri Rajiv Malhotra ji needs no introduction, as I think most people here present here would already be aware and know a lot about him. He is a researcher and public intellectual on civilizational studies, world religions, and cross-cultural encounters. He has conducted the original research in a variety of fields and has influenced many other thinkers and scholars in India and the West. He was trained initially as a physicist and then as a computer scientist, specializing in artificial intelligence in the 1970s. After a successful corporate career in the USA, he became an entrepreneur and founded and ran several IT companies across 20 countries. Since the early 1990s, as the founder of his nonprofit Infinity Foundation based in Princeton, he has been researching civilizations from a historical, social sciences, and mind sciences perspective. He has authored several best-selling books that have impacted many intellectuals worldwide. Rajiv ji also serves as the chairman of the Board of Governors of the Center of Indic Studies at the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth, and is on the advisory board of the Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. Introducing Vijaya Viswanathan ji. Srimati Vijaya Viswanathan ji is a mechanical engineer by training and holds an MBA from the Wharton Business School. After a successful corporate career in manufacturing and finance based in the USA, Singapore, and Europe, she turned her focus to education. As she embarked on a homeschooling journey with her children, she gained deep insights into the relevance of Indic knowledge systems in modern education. Vijayaji is active in initiatives that focus on curricula, pedagogy, and mentoring. As a student under Sri Swami Dayanand Saraswati of Arsh Vidya Gurukulam, she studied Vedanta as well as Dharmic and civilizational thought. She also serves on the board of Infinity Foundation. Now I will introduce the distinguished panelists. We have with us Shri Prakash Singh ji. He has been a very distinguished police officer who served in the most turbulent theaters of the country, Nagaland, Assam, Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir, and UP. He has the unique distinction of having commanded India's largest police force of Uttar Pradesh and also its then largest paramilitary outfit, the Border Security Force. The Government of India, in recognition of his contribution to national security, awarded him Padma Shri in 1991. A prolific writer, he has written 10 books so far and about 350 articles for the national dailies and journals. He was a member of the National Security Advisory Board from 2013 to 14. Presently, he is patron of India Police Foundation, member advisory board Vivekananda India International Foundation, and associate fellow of the Joint Special Operations University, US. We also have with us Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi ji. He is from Lucknow and holds a PhD in mechanical engineering. He has served as the professor at several Indian universities and is now a prominent political leader, thinker, and analyst. He was information advisor to the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh and also a political advisor to the National President of BJP. He is a rare young leader these days to be invited abroad to give lectures on non-political topics like culture, spiritualism, and science. Presently, he is a member of the Rajya Sabha and the national spokesperson of BJP. The moderator for the panel discussion is Shri Anand Narsimhan ji. He is the managing editor, special projects, and senior anchor at Network 18. I'm sure he needs no elaborate introduction as our audience would be able to recognize him as a familiar face regularly seen on CNN News 18. Yeah, so over to you, Anand Narsimanji.
Namaste, and that introduction for me was the best because I was wondering what am I doing here. So if Dattatreya Hosable ji can say कि मैं ऊपर क्या कर रहा था, imagine what I was thinking. What am I doing here? So thank you everybody, and Dattatreya ji and Swapan Das Gupta ji, I request you also to please stay with us because that's going to make this a little more engaging. Rajiv ji, मैंने कहा था ऐसे ही होगा. But before we begin, to everybody, I'd like to start with a small ode to Ma Shakti. It's a special day today, so I would say Namastestu Mahamaya, Shri Pithe Surapujite, Shankha Chakra Gada Haste, Mahalakshmi Namostude, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, Shakti Rupena Samstita, Namastasya, 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 Namo Namah. Shastra or Shastra, we need to have both as a country, as a society. And I think this book talks about that. Why this book? First, I have to ask Rajiv ji to tell us all. Some of us have perused the book. Some of us have read the book thoroughly. Some of us have got a copy in our hands, and they're going to wonder how they're going to read through 225,000 words. But it's going to be worth it, each word of it. Rajiv ji, over to you.
Namaste, and thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to the distinguished panel and to each of you for taking the time and having so much interest in this subject. First of all, I want to address the fear of a very large book that people might be scared of. So here, please listen to me carefully. This book has been written at 3 levels. And for 99% of the people, the first level is all we like you to engage. And that level requires reading 100 pages, and that's it. And I'll tell you how. If you read the introduction, which is an executive summary of the whole book, all the ideas are there, and you read the conclusion, which tells you the future as we see it, in between there are 22 chapters. Each is totally self-contained. Each is independent. You can pick and choose the ones you want. And at the beginning of every chapter is a 1-page overview, like an executive summary of the chapter. It's called chapter overview. Sometimes it's 1 page, sometimes it's 2 pages, but not more. So if you read the introduction, and then you read 22 chapters overviews, 1 page each or 1.5 pages each, and then you read the conclusion, in 100 pages, which you could do in a flight, you pick up the book at the airport, and by the time you land, you could have read it. You will know all the ideas, all the claims, all the propositions, but not the proof, not the evidence, which requires the second level of reading. So if you want to know what are these guys saying, what are all the points they're making, because there's so many points being made, we have made sure that the overview of each chapter is like the takeaway. These are the 5-10 points that we want to convince you of in this chapter. So it's bullet point style, executive summary style. So it's been written such that a large number of people should read these 100 pages and know what the thesis is. And then you can go to second level if you want. Whichever ideas and arguments interest you, you can dive into those chapters without having to read the rest of them. So for example, if you want to know why is IIT being attacked as a sham meritocracy by a Harvard professor, claiming that IIT is a bastion of casteism, it's a caste privilege, it reproduces caste oppression by the upper caste oppressing the Dalits. That's what the theory is here. If you want to read why is this, what is their argument, then you just have to read a particular chapter. I believe it's chapter 4, but yeah, I think it is. You just read that in 30, 40 pages, you'll get a point by point, what is their argument, and a response from our side. Now, just to give you a little bit about this, because I mentioned it, this is a professor at Harvard University, and it's published by Harvard University Press, with all the backing of the institution. And this book has become a bestseller in the academic world. It's not just something that is what happens in Harvard doesn't stay in Harvard. It travels, and so this has become a source book for attacking IITians and the Indian tech people in Silicon Valley. There are lawsuits now being fought. Lawsuits have been filed against companies like Cisco, with somebody saying that Dalits were not given the promotion or they were not hired. It was because the meritocracy on which is being claimed is not genuine, and all these top CEOs happen to be Brahmins or something like that. And so there are workshops in Microsoft and Facebook and Apple and Google, and these people have been calling me, Indians, saying that we are embarrassed because we're being asked to sit in these kind of caste sensitivity workshops where we are given all kind of nonsense about what is caste and how IITs are full of caste and these Brahmins are oppressing Dalits, and we're sitting there and we've been told by the HR department that if you raise too much noise or objection or even ask questions, then you'll be accused of racism, so you're better off sitting quietly and listening. And it's a big embarrassment in front of our white colleagues that we are being suddenly typecast in this way. This has happened in the last couple of years. It's accelerating. And the people who are behind it, there is one Equality Labs organization in New York. They've started conducting surveys of who is what caste and how many of the board members are of what caste in these tech companies in the United States. And it's spreading like wildfire. And they're demanding up to $75,000 per hour fees for conducting these workshops. So that's a nice income. And the reason a Microsoft would say, okay, come do it, is because they're afraid, if you don't do it, then maybe you'll be accused of bias. So one way to keep them quiet is you pay them some money and they'll come and do all this workshop and hopefully go away. But they're not going away. The laws are being passed. Regulations are being enacted in Harvard and other places as a result of it, which are saying that any accusation based on caste will be treated as an act of racism. And the laws of the United States on racism are very, very tough. There are criminal laws on racism. And so equating caste as racism has legal consequences. It affects not only the Silicon Valley and the tech industry, that being the largest place where Indians work, but anywhere, any industry, pharma industry, banking, wherever Indians work, this is going to spread like wildfire. And once it spreads like wildfire in the United States and it becomes codified as HR, the HR department makes these rules, then the subsidiaries of Microsoft in India and the subsidiaries of Google and Apple and Amazon, all these companies, and of the other industries, will have to comply because these will be the rules from headquarters. So there is a lobby that says that H-1B visa should be controlled based on caste. So this is the kind of thing that we have uncovered in this book. And all of this you can get in one chapter. You don't have to read the rest of it. So that's the example I'm giving you. 22 chapters and the conclusion, which means 23 chapters. Each of them is a particular thing, a particular case study, if you will, or a particular thesis that we are deconstructing and giving a response. So this is like, it'll give you ammunition to go and argue these things. Firstly, you'll be able to recognize when you see such a problem. You'll say, aha, that's the problem discussed in chapter 4. That's where it's coming from. And I know exactly where to go and read, and I can give some arguments. So that's the second level of detail, the level of reading where you go and become an expert on a particular topic within the book. And the third level, if you are a real researcher, we have references. There is 100 pages bibliography, 100-page long bibliography, and more than 1,600 endnotes giving you references here and there. So actually the 900 page is kind of a scary number, but it's more like 600 pages if you remove the bibliography and endnotes, because those would be of relevance to a scholar. So I'm just trying to remove the fear of this big book by telling you, read 100 pages and then figure out what intrigues you, what fascinates you, and then dive into that particular chapter. The the way we wrote this book is people ask me, why did you write and how did you write this book? Well, I've been researching Harvard in particular for almost 30 years. First, as a philanthropist, we give donations to Harvard. We were the first ones giving donations when none of these current billionaires were, firstly, they were not billionaires at that time, and they were not giving any money. Nobody was, and we were giving money. And we ran Indology conferences many years in a row. We funded visiting professors many years in a row, etc. And then, but I did not want to be hands-off like Swapan was saying. A lot of our people are hands-off. You give money, get some selfie, get some nice picture in the newspaper, feel very happy. I wanted to roll up my sleeves. I'm a very hands-on person. So I wanted to read everything they're producing. If there's a dissertation that came out of our work, I would want to read that. I would want to sit in the audience, raise my hand, and ask questions. And so I became kind of a troublemaker in the sense that they would write to me and saying, Infinity Foundation is phenomenal because they're the only source for all this kind of grants. But Rajiv Malhotra as an individual is like a pain, a nuisance to deal with. So they would say, you shouldn't be involved in all this. Let us do the work. We are the scholars. You are the philanthropists. You give the money. We look after you'll be looking good and all that. And we'll do all the work. But of course, that's exactly what has happened today. After we withdrew from that role, it created a vacuum, and a whole lot of other people filled the vacuum, but they haven't done the due diligence. They haven't done the Purva Paksha, the hard work to see what is being used, what is being done with our name and our money. So I have an old association with Harvard. Now, if you see articles against India in New York Times, BBC, Washington Post, and each time the article comes, a lot of people have a fight and react emotionally, but you need to go deeper than that. As Swapan Dav said, if there are fires here and there, you need to figure out who's putting these fires, who's starting these fires, where are they coming from? If you see poison coming through the taps, you need to know where is the central source of all this poison. You have to go deeper than the individual episodes. So right now, Jai Shankar, great guy, he's putting out fires when somebody attacks and says India doesn't have a proper democracy or human rights are being violated and we don't have religious freedom. These things are coming from the US Congress and the EU and British places, all sorts of places. Then, our embassies react. They have to react. There are threats of sanctions and all that. But we are going deeper. There was this conference called Dismantling Hindutva, which got a huge response from India. But then when the response was over in 6 months, everybody forgot. Nobody bothered to go deep and say, well, who are these guys? Why are they doing it? What's the theoretical framework? Who is funding it? And what is their motive? That's our job as scholars, to dig deeper. Not just put out the fire, but what's the cause of it? And what's the source? There is a bill in the United States Senate called, which criminalizes Islamophobia, and which says that the US State Department should have a special cell of Islamic scholars who will adjudicate when somebody is accused of Islamophobia, and this will become prosecuted by the United States government under US law anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. Which means that if you're sitting in India and there's a Nupur Sharma, then United States can apply its laws because this would apply anywhere in the world. The strange thing is, while I am against the phobia of any religion, but why only Islamophobia should be protected? Why not Hindu phobia, Jewish phobia, Christian phobia, any kind of phobia? If you want to have a law that makes it criminal to criticize a religion, then why would you pick only one religion? So I lobbied against it, and it stopped in the US Senate, at least for now. They're not moving it, but it passed in the US Congress. Huge majority passed it. So now the fact that such a bill would pass in the US Congress, now you have to go deeper and say who gave the arguments. The congressmen are not that smart. They're not experts. The US congressmen and senators are not subject matter experts. They would not think of this. There's lobbying behind it. Well, who are these lobbies? Where are the think tanks where such ideas came that we should criminalize Islamophobia, and give it the protection that no other religion has, and make it part of the United States law? I mean, where did it come from? Well, only places with huge clout and credibility and brand value That's what Harvard has. Only such places can come up with such ideas. So what starts at Harvard doesn't stay at Harvard. It becomes a worldwide thing because they have the reputation, the clout to do that. Now, the one level of knowledge is, you firefight an episode here, an episode there, and a lot of activists are there just doing that. In fact, ever since we did our Breaking India book 10, 12 years ago, it spawned so many people, some of them sitting here, who basically took those ideas and turned them into case and finding more examples. But Breaking India 2.0 says that the situation has changed. There is a new network that is doing all this. We have to go and find out what this new network is, which is what we did in this book. What is the institutional mechanism? Why is it happening on such a big scale? And what is the theoretical framework, as Swapan Das said, what is the theoretical framework in which they are justifying this and giving it dignity as some kind of scholarship? And so they're giving it the dignity so our students, previously they used to learn subaltern theory. It was very fashionable. Everybody had to learn. And then post-colonial studies, you had to know that if you knew who are the thinkers, what are the theories, you could recite all the main points, then you would learn it person in India. And then came postmodernism. So now these are the new theories that we are talking about. These are the latest new theories that have come out, and they are being spread across the young Indian bright people who do liberal arts, whether they do it in the United States or Europe or India. This knowledge, these theories have spread because they've trained teachers, professors, they have conferences on a regular basis, they're training Indian civil servants. Yes, IAS officers go to Harvard for training. There are programs from 6 months to 1 year to 2-3 years the Indian government has. These programs started with the previous government, they're just continued. But nobody has looked at what's the syllabus, what is the pedagogy, what are they being taught, are they being taught nonsense, what kind of idea of Indian history and social justice are they teaching, and is it causing harm? That needs to be looked at. That is what we are pointing out in this course. So there is a war of discourse, and in that war of discourse, Harvard is sort of like what we are classifying, we're using the metaphor of the nest of snakes. जहाँ पर सांपों का घोंसला है, where these snakes are bred and born, these poisonous snakes, and their DNA is adjusted to make them really poisonous and dangerous, and then they are these snakes spread. So if you come across a snake here and a snake there, it's not enough to just take care of this snake, but you have to find out where are these guys coming from, who is behind it, what's the DNA that's so poisonous, how do we neutralize it? So this is what the thing is about. I'll leave with a few quick provocative statements in the book, and there's almost like 100 of them, but I'll give you a sample of them. One of them is Harvard the Vishwaguru and not India? That's a provocation. I challenge, because if Harvard is controlling our own discourse, how do we claim we are Vishwaguru? There's a difference between we ought to be the Vishwaguru, but that doesn't mean we are the Vishwaguru. We go around saying we are, but we ought to be, but Harvard is our Vishwaguru. They have more say, more influence worldwide on what people are thinking about India than we are. Another thing I want to, in that regard, is why is it that when a book like this came out attacking the IITs, there was no response, no review, no response from the IITians. The Pan IIT organization did nothing. TIE, which is a very prestigious group of all these tech people who made tons of money, not any featuring of this. I did it as a non-IIT person because of principles. I'm sticking my neck out for their sake. But these guys got a lot of resources, they got money, they got intelligence, brains. They could have put a team together and said, go, let's fight this. Let's nip it in the bud because it's dangerous for us. Why didn't they do it? Well, I went around asking them. And saying, okay, I've written a 40-50 page chapter on this. You guys should promote it. And they all look at it and they say, acha, aap acha kaam kar rahe hain. You're doing good job. Thank you. So they are very happy. I'm sticking my neck out, doing their job for them. Why are they not able to stick their neck out and do this. They have no excuse. They have all the resources and they have a lot to lose, but they like to have someone else fight. Well, I found out the reason. And the reason is they like to be goody-goody and be sitting on this board and get that contract and be part of this networking so that, they don't come out as controversial. And maybe the Indian government will give them some award, recognition, whereas if they are seen fighting, if you fight, you'll also get hit. And obviously you'll become controversial. Obviously, if you're making an impact, then the opposition will come after you. But that means you're doing a good job. It doesn't mean that they should boycott you. That's the kind of person they should support. But our tendency has been to be risk averse, support those who are very controversial goody-goody guys, give them recognition, and somebody who's doing the real fighting and making an impact, wo to controversial ho gaya hai, so we should be careful. So that's a shame, but I'm finding that, I'm facing that. Another provocation is, with all this talk about decolonizing that we see here, every month and every week or two, there's some decolonizing conference or soft power conference. Well, all these soft power wallas and decolonizing wallas, why haven't they done this work to find out where is this poison coming from? Because the first thing you have to do if you want to decolonize is find out who's doing the recolonization. This new discourse is recolonizing India. So talk about decolonizing from the British, but we are recolonizing this new kind of a thesis. So we need to know where it's coming from, who's behind it, how to counter it. And unless we do that, all this manthan business and talk business has no value. But I didn't find, and this is not with any bad intentions, but I didn't find as a patriotic Indian and a person who loves what is happening in recent years in our country with our government, I must say that I did not find ICCR, which is the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, part of Ministry of External Affairs, taking a stand on any of this. I didn't find that. And I brought it to their attention many times. I didn't find Ministry of External Affairs or HRD or the national security people. It should be of interest to all of them. But I don't know why they haven't taken this up. So I don't want to speculate, but the purpose of this book is to sit down with such people as friends. Sit down with the billionaires as friends and say, these are our findings. How do we work together? How do we bring you on board so we're all on the same page solving this problem, because we're all together in this, love for our civilization. So these are some of the provocations. Now, people have asked me, why are you naming names of billionaires? Billionaires are used to audit. You do a financial audit, you get Ernst & Young, or you get PricewaterhouseCoopers or Deloitte, or somebody like that. And their job as auditor is to come and give you, red flags, what's not going correct. And they're not harming you, they're helping you. It's like a doctor puts you on a treadmill to give you advice on what your cardiac vulnerability, not because he want to kill you, but we want to save you. So understanding the vulnerabilities is a very good contribution. So we are doing what you may think of a civilizational audit for the billionaires. We're auditing their engagement with Indian civilization using foreign people to do the work, outsourcing the study of Indian civilization to foreign people who have a track record of bad intentions. So we are basically like an auditor saying, Mr. Mahindra, we love you, we respect you, you're a great guy, but please notice what is being done in your name and with your money. Maybe you haven't paid attention to it, you're doing something else, you are an automobile engineering expert, manufacturing expert, not an expert on critical race theory and Marxism and all these kind of things, but you should get somebody, some subject matter expert, neutral, not Harvard giving their own review, but neutral, independent team to go and do a report once a year. Give you a report once a year, what is being done with your money. Every billionaire, if they make an investment in some industry, obviously they get a report all the time, how are we doing? But in this case, it seems they are very happy if they get a selfie and they look very good in the same boardroom as Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or one of those guys. They feel very proud that, I'm now in the big league. I'm an important guy. I've given them 50 million and they put me on this committee or whatever. So that is the craving. That's a level of satisfaction to feel that they have become big shots in the global world. I think that they mean well. They are good people and they are patriotic people, and they just need to be educated on this and given a little push that they will wake up. And that is what this book is trying to do. Now, the book talks about the Americanization of Marxism. That's a huge provocation. The Americanization of Marxism. Most of you will think that Americans would not want Marxism. It's a center of capitalism. Why would they want Marxism? Well, we are showing you that Marxism has entered in a different way. It's called critical race theory, which has the same premises of oppressor versus oppressed and thesis, antithesis, all of that. But it's now it's not called Marxism, but it's reincarnated in another way, but it's a very American thing. So if you ask me, I would say that the United States is now the leading center for this new kind of Marxism in its development and its spread worldwide. This is a very provocative statement we're making, and I think chapter 1, which is a large chapter, just talks about this. There's another provocation, the Islamization of Black Lives Matter. The Islamization of Black Lives Matter. When the Black Lives Matter movement started, we supported it. I actually funded it. And because blacks need help. But they did not have a theoretical framework and a big international kind of a thing. So a lot of the Middle Eastern funding people, they went and supported the Black Lives Matter movement and won them over. That's something which has not been written about enough. How the global left and the Islamic forces have infiltrated and taken over the black movement. And then another provocation is the merger of the Dalit empowerment and the black empowerment into the Afro-Dalit movement. The Afro-Dalit movement. There are books, like you might have come across this one, which talks about racism originated in Indian caste system. This is by a black woman. It's on Oprah and all over the place. It's a New York Times, #1 New York Times bestseller. So these are not very trivial things, they're very important things. And basically his thesis is, and this lady did her work with Ambedkarites in India, and Ambedkarites, I have no problem with them, but what they did is, they said that the Dalits are the blacks of India, and the non-Dalits are the whites of India, and caste is a form of racism. So you can take American history of racism and interpret Indian caste, and you can apply American racism laws onto India. And so this whole thing is will take India apart, because Indian society is far more complex. Indian society has its own framework, how to look at these things. Yes, there are problems, but there are also solutions within India. So to outsource the entire social studies of India over to some other country and let them superimpose their racism history on us is a big disgrace. And we should not be encouraging that. Unfortunately, we are. So that is another part of this. Then there is something called cancel culture. You might have heard about it. Cancel culture is a very popular thing which says that if you are opposing us, we'll cancel your talk. We will not listen to you. Now you may think this is just rudeness, but there is a theoretical justification in the framework. Cancel culture is not something being done as an aberration. It is part of the established thesis. It's part of the toolkit. It says that the oppressor should not be allowed to speak. Only the oppressed should speak, because then you can create a counter hegemony. The oppressor has created the hegemonic discourse, which is bad. And to create a counter hegemonic discourse, we need to silence him. And only the oppressed should be allowed to speak to create a counter hegemony. And therefore, cancel culture is justified and, in fact, a very important part of the toolkit. So I could go on. One serious matter, I mean, all these are serious matters, but one last serious matter I'll tell you is that Harvard is becoming the curator and collector and keeper of the database on India, India's mapping of India. India, mapping of genetics of Indian people, mapping of tribal languages, tribal cultures, mapping of social media, all the social media, who is vulnerable to violence, who supports this group, who's, when there is a certain riot, who came on this side, who came on that side. So your profile, based on what you like and what you don't like and what you post, is very detailed. And so they know if you want to spread communal violence, who to, incite, with what, genuine news or fake news. In other words, that entire manipulation of databases now be in the hands of American people. Harvard and a few private enterprises control that. They are also building something called the partition database. Partition database is inviting, they have conferences, they have scholarships to bring all kind of scholars to bring from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, any data, any film, any record, any physical artifact that has to do with partition, and they have enough database capacity that they're just going on absorbing this. So what it means is that in the next generation, if some young Indian scholar wants to do research, he'll have to go to Harvard because they'll have the database nobody has. Because you go wherever the libraries are the best, the database is the best. It's very user-friendly, it's very accessible, but it's owned by them, it's censored by them, it's interpreted by them. They can deny you access or they can give you access. So if you own the database on a subject, then you own the discourse that can be created of it. So I could go on. There's about 15 such database projects at Harvard that we've mentioned in this book, about from public health to caste oriented. There's a database on lawsuits, who's suing whom, database on that. There are bankruptcies and financial problems and credit ratings, so you can find out who are the vulnerable people within this community who may need some money that can be given to bribe them or buy them out. All that is so this business of mapping India, creating a whole detailed map. I don't think there's any other country in the world that they have picked the way they picked India to map it out. And Indians are very happily giving this, thinking that they're doing us a favor, because it's presented as, oh, we are the custodians, we'll keep all this safe for you. We'll keep all your data assets safe for you. So there are so many programs with universities, with health departments, with government agencies, state level and all kind of levels. I could just, this is a big topic, so I guess we'll leave it for Q&A. And then another one is how China has invaded and penetrated Harvard and done a very different job than India in terms of compromising some of the professors and scholars and so on, and how they used their footprint in Harvard to then launch their activities in India. So China via Harvard into India occupies a couple of chapters in this book. I'll stop because Pavan wants to provoke us with more Q&A. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Rajiv ji. But let's take this forward and get everybody's thoughts. The more you speak, the more I want to read this, because there's an incident which happened with me, which kind of switched my lights on more than a decade ago, and that happened just around the time I got Breaking India in my hand. So, but there was an incident that happened and which made me realize that we are in a nation which is in deep slumber. But Vijaya ji, let me ask you, why India? Why this civilization? Why the Twa, that is the nest, Hindu nest of Hindus?
Namaste, everybody. But before I answer that question, I wanted to have the pleasant job. Rajiv ji talked about the big picture provocations, but the book is not complete if you do not get the taste of the poison that he mentioned. So I want to give you all, so you might be sitting here wondering, okay, there is Marxism in America, American whatever, right? Or IITs are being bashed. What's it for me? I'm going to go home and eat dinner and go to bed. So here is an example that will touch every one of you, because you are all part of a family. You have kids, grandkids, and how this poison is coming to your home. Yeah. So I just wanted to give that taste of the poison, so it hits home. So we talked about critical race theory, becoming a breaking India force. And so I want to show how critical race theory gets into gender studies and sexuality studies, and does the job of breaking the family. Now, let's take the example of Ashoka University. Ashoka prides itself as being the Harvard of India, which is commendable, I guess. And so they have a center for studies in gender and sexuality at Ashoka. They inked a deal with an American university a few years ago to bring in gender and sexuality scholarship into Ashoka, thus Ashoka becoming a pipeline for distribution of ideas on gender and sexuality in India. And the natural consequence of that would be to politically indoctrinate young minds. Now, how does this happen? So I'll give you 3 examples from some of the seminars and conferences at Ashoka, and you will be shocked. So, for example, in a conference on education, hosted by Ashoka, an expert said that, I quote, "Pornography should and can play a role in education. The idea is to put pressure on heteronormativity." So there's huge amount of studies on the ill effects of pornography in children and adults. 60% of American divorces are because of pornography. Pornography is the cause of acts of physical and sexual violence and aggression. It also causes deviant sexual behavior. So here is a person saying pornography should and can play a role in education. In another conference at Ashoka University called Sex, Sexuality, and Education, another so-called expert says, what kind of education will it be if it does not involve pushing boundaries, risk, and experimentation? One would think studies in sexuality would talk about prevention and safety and things like that, but they are talking about pushing boundaries and being, and taking on risky behavior, and also trying experimentation. Now, the third example is, of course, more poignant. A so-called victim group. So, as you know, critical race theory, wants more and more, makes newer and newer victim groups, and the field of gender and sexuality is a fertile ground to have more and more victimhood and more identities. These synthetic identities based on sexuality and gender. So, a victim group nurtured by Ashoka is the bondage, domination, sadomasochism, BDSM community. And they consider themselves struggling under oppression. And of course, so there's cancel culture, so they become a victim, so you can't really talk against them. So struggling under oppression from built-in caste and class structures. Yeah. So they also say the benefits of educating people on how kinky sex is practiced in India. The outside expert that Ashoka brought in said that all desires, including humiliation, and all fantasies, including rape, are permissible as long as there is consent. Yeah. So, and because they say anything deviant is desirable because it challenges the existing ideas that have been propped up by the existing power structures and existing power hierarchies of gender, caste, class, and religion. Now, was that enough to rattle you? Let's go down this rabbit hole just a little further, so fasten your seatbelts. See, so anyone that studies gender, queer studies, and sexuality studies from a Western standpoint, you cannot go down too far without encountering something called radical gender theory. What does that mean? Radical gender theory basically advocates removing all restrictions on what they call transgenerational sexual relationship. What is transgenerational sexual relationship? It means sexual relationship between adults and children, commonly known as pedophilia. So they want to remove restrictions. They advocate removing restrictions on pedophilia. What is even more interesting is, like all social sciences, they come up with fancy words. So they want to destigmatize pedophiles because they are considered an oppressed group, right? And so the new name for pedophilia is called MAP, minor attracted person, is a MAP. So where is pedophilia and how does MAP sound, right? So, so they're coming for your kids. So if you think this is something, that's in Harvard or dismantling of IITs or something like that, it's coming to your homes through, on all these sorts of, social and emotional learning. It comes under the umbrella, at least in the US, as social and emotional learning. Sex education is going to be part of the curriculum. And it's coming, even the UN has sort of adopted some of this. So this is bound to, create a wedge in between the parent and child. The idea is to bring in pornography, to make children and students, indulge in risky sexual behavior. There is a whole study on desires and how one approaches them. There is destigmatizing of pedophilia. And essentially, all this is an attack on childhood innocence and the family, because the family is considered as an oppressive structure born out of patriarchy. And childhood innocence is under attack. We all want to protect our children from certain things till they are much older, and that's considered something of the privileged and something born out of patriarchy. So, this is essentially sort of the core of gender theory, and this is all coming into your home sooner or later if you don't act. We all just send our children to school and hope everything works out, but it's all going to come to us sooner or later. So with that, I will, stop now. Yeah.
You said you will answer my question.
Yes.
Why the Hindu society? Why Hindu and Hindutva, and why Hindustan?
I think, first of all, we are not very grounded as people, so we are up for sale. There are lots of the subaltern groups have a voice over there, overseas. So if you can speak against India, and if you're considered an oppressed person based on any of these categories, you'll find patronage overseas. Yeah, and as a foreign policy, for any foreign country, right, they would like as much ammunition as possible on a country. And so if you can use your own people, so we do a poor job of educating, and we also, these kinds of divisive, waves of ideology that Rajiv ji's talked about. They've always created a divisive society and created many subaltern groups who then find home and patronage overseas. So, it's one of those cycles, is my view.
We'll take it further in the Q&A, Vijaya ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now I'm going to go straight across to Prakash ji and ask you to share your thoughts.
Dattatreya ji, distinguished luminaries on the dais, and distinguished members in the audience. I have been reading books and books, but this one, Snakes in the Ganga, was a different experience altogether. It was one of the few books which I would describe as an eye-opener. In between, I have been reading news items about USA, attack on Indian democracy, attack on our human rights record, attack on our caste system, but I was not able to connect the dots. But having read this book, I am beginning to see a pattern. And this pattern has really, whatever I have read in the book, it has educated me, it has made me wiser, and it has also alarmed me. Alarmed me, yes. As to, how is it that such things are happening, and what have we done so far? There's a personal incident also which flashed back in my mind just now. It happened about 10 years back. I had applied for a visa to Canada because the World Bank was holding a conference there and they wanted me to attend that also. So in the normal course, I applied for a visa and I took it for granted that it would be coming. But the visa was denied to me. Mind you, earlier I had been to Canada from USA, where my son stays, but this time they denied the visa to me when I indicated the purpose and my background. I inquired after, what's wrong? On what ground are you refusing? You know what ground they gave? You have been Director General of India's Border Security Force and all the paramilitary organizations are engaged in violating human rights. It's a strange argument. In one brush, you want to tar the entire paramilitary setup and all its officers without going into the merits of one individual or one case. I felt very annoyed, but I just left it at that. What I have done as a follow-up, because I keep on getting invitations from embassies. While other invitations, I may respond, I may not respond, but when it comes from Canada, I sent them a nasty reply that I don't visit such a stupid country. You are such a stupid country and I don't respond to any invitation from Canadian embassy. That's the response I give whenever I get an invitation from there. So, all these things I am now able to connect. How they are trying to attack, as Rajiv Malhotra ji and Vijaya Viswanathan ji have very brilliantly, I would say, brought out in their book, that there is an attack on our culture, on our ancient civilization, and this attack is manifesting, is coming through what they call the critical race theory, which is also referred to by that ugly word called wokeism. Its manifestations, the dangerous manifestations are, they are attacking Hinduism, because unless Hinduism is dismantled, caste structure will not go. So attack Hinduism, root and branch. Attack Sanskrit, because it is a dead language. Attack the family system because it perpetuates patriarchy. Attack the gurus because they are parasites. Attack the festivals because they don't serve any purpose and you're wasting so much money there. Attack the Vedic texts because they say the Vedic texts are responsible for all the social evils that India is suffering from. Whether it is the caste system, whether it is the exploitation of the female, gender inequality, social injustice, caste bias, everything is attributed to the Vedic texts. So the Vedas should be attacked, Sanskrit should be attacked, family system should be attacked, guru should be attacked, festival should be attacked, and Hinduism itself should be dismantled. That is the all-comprehensive attack on our religion and culture which we are witnessing. And as Rajiv ji said, Harvard is the nest of snakes, which we have been eulogizing all the time. And not only Harvard, about certain other institutions I had a lot of respect. Ashoka University I thought was a great institution. I had never been inside there, but I thought it was a great institution which we had built up. And it has been built up by Indian billionaires, if not billionaires, millionaires. Billionaires and millionaires have built it. And this is the kind of education being given there, as Vijaya ji just now said. I mean, they want to destroy our social values, our family system completely. And we eulogize them, we glorify them. there's something there's something basically wrong with us. There's something basically wrong with all of us. It happens in the neighborhood and we don't know it. It happens and we don't raise our voice in protest. Rajiv ji has exposed it, but the fight has to be carried on by we Indians. I mean, what people, and the tragedy is, I was so distressed after reading the book. I mean, people like Ajanta Subramaniam, like Suraj Yangde, about Soundarajan, they are in the forefront of the campaign against campaign of breaking India. They are in the forefront of the campaign. Of course, they are supported by others also. And this Harvard University is we have been patronizing. I mean, I didn't know about Harvard that this is the kind of business they are involved in. We always thought it was a matter of great prestige and to be going to Harvard and doing a course there, something I never did or was never considered fit for. No regrets in retrospect. Because I would have run into problems there. And this nest of snakes, they have been bringing out atrocity literature and this attack on IITs and IIMs. Why is this attack? Because the IIT and IIM products are capturing US. They're capturing US, so how to avoid this? The best thing is to go to the root. Attack the IITs, attack the IIMs. जब यही खत्म हो जाएंगे तो इनसे ब्रिलियंट लड़के कहाँ से आएंगे? So attack them. And we can't see this dirty game. And what have the IITs done, as you rightly pointed out? What have the IIMs done with all the scholarship, with all the funding which they have at their disposal? I'm really amazed. Rajiv ji and Vijaya ji have done a great job, but what are we Indians doing? What all our institutions are doing, and what is the government doing? Sopan Das ji Gupta mentioned the film scene where they are playing chess while the British troops are marching in. Is that true even today? I hope not. It's not true today, I know. But this chess game has gone on for, I think, more than 50, 60 years. When are we going to wake up? Every time we hear there's a wake-up call for this, a wake-up call for this. But when are we going to wake up and realize our strength, realize our potential, and not only defend ourselves, but go on the offensive? I mean, we are at the losing end. We are suffering. We are being attacked in Afghanistan. The other day I saw a picture of Sikh Jatha back in India. And they said, I think only 24, less than 100 Sikhs are left in Afghanistan now. Every third day there is a news item about some Hindu woman being kidnapped and converted and married to a Muslim in Pakistan. Every second, third day it happens. Every month there is a news item in Bangladesh about a Hindu temple being attacked. And now in Canada we are not safe, in UK we are not safe. I mean, we are under attack from everywhere. As I said, there's something wrong with us. We are incapable of defending ourselves mentally and physically both. Let us at least defend ourselves. I mean, from here we can only defend ourselves mentally. But physically also we should be capable of defending ourselves. How is it that Khalistanis have acquired so much of clout in Canada? How is it? After all, these people have gone from India. Have we bothered to cancel their OCI cards, OCI citizenships? Have we cared? Have we bothered? They must be having that OCI cards. So, I mean, this government, at times you feel that even now some game of chess is probably still going on in certain quarters, may not be everywhere. But our energies are being wasted in our internal problems. Please remember that the strength of a country to defend itself against onslaughts from abroad, from across the borders, depends on your internal strength. And this internal strength is being today sapped by 101 problems. We are busy fighting amongst ourselves. You look at the TV channels, every day it is sickening, disgusting. I'm sorry, Mr. Narasimhan, it is disgusting. I have stopped listening to the news bulletins now. क्या सुने उसमें? खाली चिल्लाना, बकवास, गाली देना, बस यही हो रहा है. न्यूज़ तो मिलती नहीं. बस हेडलाइन सुनते हैं. अगर हेडलाइन आपने मेहरबानी करके सुना दिया तो वो 5-10 लाइन सुन के उसके बाद भाई चलो कहीं और चलो. We are all the time, and our channels are patronizing it, our media is playing it, and that's how the world moves on, and we are very happy with our economic progress. Yes, but all this economic progress will turn out to be hollow in due course of time. Tatas have donated $50 million, Mittals have donated $25 million, Mahindras have donated $10 million. Did they ever care to donate to any Indian institution? How much are we spending on education? Our GDP is much less than what it should be. They could have started some prestigious institutions rooted in Indian history, rooted in Indian culture, rooted in our civilizational values. Did they care to? नहीं, वहाँ हमारे नाम से एक कुर्सी हो जाएगी, एक चेयर हो जाएगी, हमारे नाम से एक कमरा हो जाएगा, एक बिल्डिंग हो जाएगी. That is more important. They are doing it not to promote the cause of education or promote the cause of research. They are doing it just to satisfy their ego. कि मित्तल जी के नाम से ये हो गया, टाटा के नाम से टाटा हिल बन गई, बड़ी बात हो गई. अपने देश में तो अंधेरा है और आप बाहर चिराग जला रहे हो. कैसे लोग हो भाई ये? I will take this discussion to I will take the liberty of giving some suggestions and raising some questions. All these facts have been brought out brilliantly in your book, Rajiv ji and Vijaya ji. Did Indian Embassy in USA ever warn Government of India about these developments? I don't know. I have no access to, but I think one needs to ask this question from the Ministry of External Affairs.
He's saying no. No,
He's
it didn't
saying
happen.
no, but I don't know how much.
If Rajiv ji is saying no, then it is.
Maybe, but I would like Jaishankar ji to say no. Then that would be the.
It's on.
Not only they haven't, but they don't want me to give a talk on this at the embassy because it will give them a bad name.
Okay.
So while fighting their enemies, I am getting to be a sort of a kind of a controversial guy they don't want to touch because
No, which
they
is
want to be nice goody to all those.
Which is a matter of shame. What are these embassies for? Just to be drinking whiskey in the evening and fraternizing with people? Why are we spending so much money on our embassies? I want to know. Question number 2. What has our external intelligence agency done? All right. Ambassador doesn't want to be a bad boy. He wants to be goody to Americans because he has to meet them every day. What has RNAW, the Research and Analysis Wing, done? Have they warned Government of India about these developments, which are subversive of India, they're attacking us. It is an attack on our culture, on our civilization. It's a more devastating attack than an attack by Ahmad Shah Abdali or somebody else in the past. They are capturing the mind of the young generation. What has RNAW done all these years? They were not prevented from sending in any intelligence reports. If they have not reported, they should be questioned and they should be hauled up. This is a question which needs to be raised. A third question, a third point. Have we stopped patronizing the Harvard after knowing all this? Look, we can't, this is the least we can do. Stop sending your officers for training, for any kind of courses to Harvard as a mark of protest. Is that difficult? इसमें क्या मुश्किल है बता दीजिए. जो आपके खिलाफ जहर उगल रहे हैं उनको उनके यहाँ आप भेजते हैं कि भाई हमको सिखा दो, क्या देंगे वो आपको, क्या सिखाएंगे वो हमें? I just don't know. I just don't know how do they run this country? Do we know the art of governance? Sometimes I ask myself, do we know the art of governance? Do we know how to run international relations? I mean, now yes, but earlier did we? अगर आपको हम इंटरनेशनल रिलेशंस की बात बताएं, मतलब इतनी स्टोरीज हैं. Do you know at one time Nagaland was dealt with by the Ministry of External Affairs? Do you know that? And every time the foreign secretary went to Nagaland, I was in Nagaland those days, at the very start of my career, the Nagas would make fun of him because he knew nothing about Nagaland. He knew they would make fun of government of India and its representative. Okay, that's a different matter. I don't want to divert. So, next point. There should be some check on our filthy rich people donating to American universities. Why can't we impose that? आपने FCR तो बंद, FCR पे restrictions तो लगा दिए, पर यहाँ से दौलत बाहर क्यों जा रही है? And $50 million is not a small sum. रुक जाइए, बाद में Q&A बाद में होगा. I was running the Indian Police Foundation. We are starved of funds. हमारे पास मुश्किल से 5-10 लाख रुपए हैं जिससे किसी तरह से बड़ी मुश्किल से रोजाना काम चलता है, और यहाँ millions of dollars बाहर जा रहे हैं. Why should not there be some check on our rich people, brilliantly ignorant people, not caring about the accountability and the utilization of their funds, on their donating money to foreign institutions? There should be some check on that. Then a suggestion, which I hope government of India would be doing it, but highlight the persecution of Indians in general and Hindus in particular through your fora, whatever fora you get. I've told you the story of Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Canada, UK. These are in the news today. There are several other countries where similar things may be happening, or maybe at a very nascent stage. Another suggestion. Why don't we establish our own think tanks to assess the human rights records of different countries? Who are the American? The Americans को किसने ठेका दे दिया है कि साहब?
This has been done. This has been done, yeah. So
Okay.
there is a think tank and there is a detailed report on how other nations fail at human rights, and they've got no business talking about India and human rights. So it's been done exhaustively, it's been done.
I'm glad it is being done. I haven't heard about it yet.
That's why, sir, you need to watch CNN News 18 a little more often.
Okay. चलिए, something to talk about. On human rights, you have said about human rights, but it's a much bigger area. Please.
It is being done, but it is not being, in the United States, it's not just a report. The report goes to the Senate, the Congress, the State Department. They enact a policy warning those countries that have been listed as part of US foreign policy that if you don't correct this, correct that, you can have sanctions. What would put teeth in this report is if the Indian Parliament then got this report and passed a resolution condemning those countries, and it became part of Indian foreign policy, and the Ministry of External Affairs went to those countries and put them on notice, then it would be of equivalent value, just a report.
Well said, sir, well said.
And you have talked about human rights, but what about religious freedom? What about Human Development Index?
All of this has been covered in that report, but it has not crossed the legs that Rajiv ji said it should have.
So that
in our
has to be
system.
done in a big way, and it must get publicity internationally. That is important. Last point. You have talked about snakes in USA, but you have also talked about snakes in India. I forgot one paper. But sir, what I want to add to what you have written, of course, your book is comprehensive, it is complete, But for the benefit of the audience, I would say that we have far too many snakes in India, snakes, scorpions, all over the country. I mean, I downloaded today the number of terrorist and extremist groups in India. You know what the number is? The proscribed groups are 79. Proscribed, banned, 79. The other groups which are active but not banned is 76. Total works out to 153. Add to these number of those terrorist and extremist groups which are having some dialogue or peace talks with Government of India, those are, then the total becomes 173. 173. The inactive groups are 107. Inactive, or you can say dormant. The total then works out to 280. It runs into 4 pages. Even if I were to read out their names, it will take me 10 minutes, so I won't take all that time. But this is the total list which I am giving to you, sir. Because you are writing about snakes. These are snakes, scorpions, pythons, I don't know how else to describe, all over India. What are we going to do with them? And the number has been going on increasing for some time. Without going into details, you see, all this is happening because our doctrinal approach to tackling these problems is wrong. The strategic vision is lacking, and tactically we keep on making mistakes. I won't have time to go into all that detail, but we have problems and problems. We need to be proactive and in due course even go on the offensive. A whole lot, so much is to be covered. Thank you very much to Rajiv ji and Vijaya ji for having exposed the snakes in USA and some snakes in India about which we were not aware. Thank you.
Lovely, Prakash ji. Thank you so much. Wait, did you know, before I go to Sudhanshu ji, did you know that every hotel in India, the meat that they serve is halal? But do you have a choice? So how does your choice doesn't matter? And how is it that the hotels by default start serving you halal meat? Whereas a lot of communities in our country, by principle, have jhatka. So why are you denied that? And not just that, there are at least 4 castes who have been rendered jobless or have had to convert to Islam because they did not get a chance to ply their wares or their sustenance. This is not an issue in our country. It is not in our cognizant field of. And 8 years, Sudhanshu ji, aapki bari hai. Thank you for your patience. So I'm going to come to you. That in 8 years, we had an education minister who said that after my tenure of 4 years, I have not changed a single word or a single text in any of our books. Now, if that is where we are going to be, from a government and from a policy and from a think tank or approach, which said we will change all that has corrupted our civilizational roots and we'll go back, then who are we to blame Harvard or anybody else? The other thing, the last 8 years, how many parents have said, ये पढ़ो और निकलो बंद करो, इसी देश में रहोगे यहीं पढ़ोगे? How many of us here, 60 to 70%, I'm just taking a wild guess, have somebody who's decided to send their children abroad, or who have people studying abroad, or have decided to leave the country and live abroad because यहाँ कुछ नहीं रखा है. But पिछले 8 साल में ये नंबर कितना बढ़ा है, कितना घटा है? कितने लोगों ने कहा कि नहीं हमारे बच्चों को यहीं पढ़ाएंगे, यहाँ के भाषा? 2-4 हाथ खड़े होंगे सर. तो यहाँ इस पृष्ठभूमि से मैं सुधांशु जी का टर्फ थोड़ा सा, अब सुधांशु जी कहेंगे आप मित्र हैं कि शत्रु पता नहीं आ रहा.
Respected Datta ji, the duo writers, Swapan Das ji, Prakash ji, Anand ji, and all distinguished guests present in this house. This is a very big and voluminous book, and if I say that I have read throughout the entire book and I having the authority to comment on the entire content, then you will say this is the reason that's why there is a crisis of credibility among the politicians. So what I'm saying that I have just got a chance to look at a glance, but I am very much sure about the intent because I met Rajiv Malhotra ji around 20 years back in 2002 in University of Dartmouth, and from there I have seen several times what he's trying to put forth, which is very legitimate today. And now I will take the clue from what Dattaji has said. Today is the first day of Navratra. And now I would like to try to connect what Anand has said. उन्होंने कहा कि हम में से कितने लोग कहते हैं कि हम अपने बच्चों को यहाँ पढ़ाते हैं, बट मैं दूसरी बात कहना चाहता हूं, हम अपने बच्चों को क्या बताते हैं? Today is the first day of Navratra, the festival of Shakti. I can say with firm humility but with firm conviction, can you quote a single civilization, religious country or religion country in the world in which the element of femininity is there in the God? All culture and civilization having the concept of God, but in God only masculine element is there. स्त्री तत्व का कोई स्थान नहीं है God में. It's only in India. And still, we are being subjected and we feel inferiority complex that we do not do justice to the gender equality. We are the only country or the only civilization in Hinduism which you are having the concept of Ardhanarishwar. Anywhere in the world, most of the civilization says कि औरत में तो आत्मा होती नहीं है. And still, we are being victimized and most of our children do not know about this. And you will say, and it's not only just Ardhanarishwar, the two complement. How they are complemented with each other, which has been very beautifully explained in our ancient text. As it is said, Vagarthami samprakto, Vagarthami pratipataye, Jagatah pitaro vande Parvati Parameshwaro. It means, it's like the meaning and the world of a poetry. That's how these two elements have conjunct in Bhagwan Shankar. Because if there is no meaning, the world is waste. But a meaning cannot be expressed without a word. So that's how they have got connected. अब आप कहेंगे साहब ये तो फिलॉसफी हुई, आज की रियलिटी में क्या है? अब I want to just ask that some of the people or most of the people do not know कि हिंदू धर्म में अखाड़े कितने हैं. There are 13 akhadas which are considered as a sect of Hinduism. और उसमें से एक अखाड़े की, the chief of the akhada is called महामंडलेश्वर. और उसमें से एक अखाड़े की महामंडलेश्वर साध्वी निरंजन ज्योति हैं, who is also the minister in our government, and she is from that caste which is considered in Delhi they fall in the scheduled caste, in UP they fall in the most backward. And now I challenge in the entire world, any religion can claim that any head of their, any of the one of sect is lady, and that too which they try to finger out as a lower caste. No. We ourselves are, and I'm not just pointing out that Draupadi Murmu ji has become the President of India. That is one thing, that is political. I am talking about the pure. Most of the women sadhvis are from OBC caste. Though हमारे यहाँ कहा जाता है जात न पूछो साधु की, but here the discussion is like that. आप जितनों के भी नाम ले लीजिए, most of them from there. अब जब आनंद जी ने कहा अच्छी बात है, हम अपने बच्चों को ये नहीं बताते, तो जब बच्चा स्कूल में जाता है और उधर से कितना पॉइजन किया जा रहा है, वो तो राजीव जी ने अपनी बुक में बताया है. They are having so structured setup, and that structured setup has to be countered by a structured setup also. That needs the government support, the social support, other support, but also the basic fundamental support from the family itself. And one more question was asked, जो पूछा था उन्होंने, कि why Hindutva is being targeted. There are two type of forces. One, we want to make India a developed country, as Prime Minister has said, that we are in the Amrit Kal, from Amrit Mahotsav to the 100th year. And there are certain forces which want to have a Gazwa-e-Hind type of concept in the next 25 years. So there is a distinct difference and you can say contradiction and attack from all the sides. But the question arises, why only India? Why only Hindutva? This I will give answer later on. But One thing I would like to point out, that I have been to US just 4 months back. And then for the first time, at Rajiv ji was telling, I came to know about this equality lab, which was not there a few years back when we used to go. Then I came to know in the Silicon Valley how these lawsuits and other things are going on, which has been mentioned here. Even in the book, it has been mentioned that the one lady who has got with the LGBT community, and when she entered into that community, she found that they are being forced to have an anti-Hindu mindset, and they are not ready to talk about anything about the Islamic world in which they are liable to be beheaded if they are found like this, or they can be killed if they are found like this, but they are not ready to talk about that. So this shows, these type of examples which are there in the book shows that how the things have been structured and how they have been propagated to pollute the system. And we have to first understand कि प्रॉब्लम कहाँ कहाँ पे है. अगर हम यही नहीं समझेंगे कि स्नेक है कहाँ पे, तो हमें समझ में नहीं आएगा कि हमें उसको काउंटर कैसे करना है. आई रिमेंबर व्हेन आई फर्स्ट मेट राजीव जी इन 2002, मुझे याद है फर्स्ट आई वेंट टू यूएस इन 2000. इंडिया के बारे में कोई खबर ही नहीं निकलती थी. इवन 2002 में आई रिमेंबर इट वाज समवेयर इन 28th और 29th ऑफ जुलाई 2002. अगर आर्काइव्स में से कोई जाके देख ले, न्यूयॉर्क टाइम्स मैंने बाई चांस देखा, 2 full pages स्प्रेड फॉर गुजरात. अरे पढ़ के ऐसा लगता है जैसे पता नहीं हिंदुस्तान में क्या हो गया है. और इतना कवरेज तो न्यूक्लियर एक्सप्लोजन को नहीं मिला था. सो दैट शोज द माइंडसेट. और इसलिए फिर धीरे धीरे वहां पे समझ में आया कि प्रॉब्लम मुझे ये भी लगती है कि वी आर हैविंग सम एक्सपीरियंस, और दोज हु आर try to project themselves as left liberal, we are having a counter narrative because we are having some cultural identity, values and others, and unfortunately US is not having that type of a strong counter narrative. So they got entangled in those type of things, as it has been mentioned by Vijaya ji also, that how they portray the worlds. We all are aware of the word left liberal, but can you name a single leftist country in the world which was liberal? Can you name a single communist regime? Even in the country, the political murder started in the state of Bengal and Kerala when communists came into power. Left can never be a liberal. If somebody says that I'm a left liberal, it's like saying that I'm a devout atheist. And that's why they try to use the words like Gandhians with a gun. तो हमें यह भी समझना होगा कि ये पूरा का पूरा जो फैकेट क्रिएट किया जा रहा है, उसमें है क्या, उसमें डेप्थ क्या है. और इस बुक ने बहुत अच्छे ढंग से उन चीजों को हाईलाइट करने की कोशिश की है. जैसा मेंशन किया गया, बहुत से लोग सपोर्ट करते हैं पर उन्हें नहीं ध्यान रहता है कि व्हाट दे आर डूइंग. हमारी जितनी भी यंगर जनरेशंस हैं, दे शुड ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड वन मोर थिंग. और वो हमने जो कहा हमारे अंदर एक्सपीरियंस है, वो क्यों है. देखिए, जब रावण आया था सीता हरण करने के लिए, तो राक्षस के वेश में आया था कि साधु के वेश में आया था. तो बस ये समझ लीजिए कि हमारे अंदर वो दृष्टि होनी चाहिए कि जब हम लक्ष्मण रेखा पार करें, उससे पहले हमें समझ में आ जाना चाहिए कि इस चेहरे के पीछे है क्या. और आज भी जो हमारे यहाँ जितनी भी स्टोरीज हैं, जिसको स्टोरी नहीं कहना चाहिए, दीज आर द रियल गाइडिंग प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ द सोसाइटी, वो आज भी वही हैं. आज भी वही स्थिति है कि इस ढंग की आसुरी शक्तियां एक दूसरा आवरण लगा के आती हैं. एंड देन दे से इट इज, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द लिबरल, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द लिबरल आर्ट्स, वी आर डेवलपमेंट, मॉडर्नाइजेशन, लिबरलाइजेशन, ग्लोबलाइजेशन. इसके पीछे क्या क्या छुपा हुआ है, वो हमें समझने की शक्ति समझनी होगी. देन वी विल बी एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड. और यहां पर एक बात और भी कहें कि जो इस्लामोफोबिया का लॉ जैसा यूएस ने बनाया, तो मैं एक बात ये भी कहना चाहूंगा, इफ यू लुक, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट 25 years ahead, and if you look at 25 years back, US should try to learn from us. रीजन इज, आप ही नहीं समझ पा रहे हो कि सांप क्या है. हिलेरी क्लिंटन ने कहा था ना, अपने बगल में सांप पालोगे तो ये मत सोचना कि वो आपको नहीं डसेगा. तो ये हम इसलिए कह रहे हैं कि if you look at 25 years back, 1997, क्या स्टेटस था यूएस का और आज क्या स्टेटस है. They are talking about a global law. अब ये बताइए, आपका लॉ रशिया तो मान नहीं रहा, चाइना मान नहीं रहा, आधा वर्ल्ड मान नहीं रहा. 97 में तो ये स्थिति नहीं थी. मैं ये भी कहना चाहता हूं कि हम जब एमर्ज कर रहे हैं, जैसे मीडिया की बात बहुत अच्छे ढंग से कही गई. इन मीडिया ड्यूरिंग अवर स्टूडेंट लाइफ, आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट अर्ली 90s, when the entire media was having a left control, then the first, you can say, democratization of the media started when the vernacular media has started giving a space for the right wing, jisko we say nationalist, they called right wing. Then the decade of 90s, if you look, the entire vernacular media has got a space. But the so-called national media, which was predominantly English media, was still living in the pre-2000 era. अब आपने देखा पिछले कुछ सालों से इंग्लिश मीडिया में भी हुआ, तो अब क्या हुआ, जो सारे वर्नैकुलर मीडिया वाले थे वो भाग के आ गए थे यहां, अब वो भाग के चले गए वहां. तो वो अपना जितना भी वेनम है उसको वहां पर करना चाह रहे हैं. मैं इस नेगेटिव चीज में भी थोड़ा रे ऑफ होप देखता हूं कि वहां तक पहुंच गए हो, चिंता मत करना, एक समय आएगा कि आपको वहां के बाद का भी स्थान नहीं मिलेगा, प्रोवाइडेड वी आर एबल टू अंडरस्टैंड एंड रियलाइज व्हाट इज. अब यहां पे मैं ऑन थोड़ा सा सब्जेक्ट से थोड़ा सा डाइवर्ट करके कहता हूं. 97 ऑनवर्ड्स देखिए यूएस के साथ क्या हुआ. 98 वी परफॉर्म द न्यूक्लियर टेस्ट. For the first time in the entire history of the world, a nuclear test was performed and America was unable to identify. Only after India announced that we performed the test. Question mark over supreme intelligence. Then came the Florida crisis in 2000 election. The entire world came to know that the person who has got more votes was not elected as president. So your supremacy of the legislative system, question mark. Then came 9/11. What about the security? Then 2008, subprime lending crisis, your economic system supremacy. Then 2016, Donald Trump becomes the president and so many becomes criticism. And not only this, the US, who has tried to said in 1991 that it is best for the rest to follow the West, that globalization has become the order of the day. And the first thing Donald Trump has done, he has put out of the Pacific Agreement. And he said, first America. अब आप देखिए वहां रॉयट्स भी होने लगे. मैं तो सिर्फ ये कह रहा हूं, आज जो यूएस की स्थिति है, यूएसएसआर यूक्रेन वॉर में, हाउ मेनी दे कैन इन्फ्लुएंस. आवर प्राइम मिनिस्टर कैन टॉक टू बोथ द प्रेसिडेंट्स. इवन आपने देखा कि व्लादिमीर पुतिन के सामने भी यूक्रेन के लिए भी थैंक्स बोल दिया और ये कहा कि वॉर इज नॉट ऑफ द डे. आज यूएस प्रेसिडेंट बोल सकता? नहीं बोल सकता. इसलिए मैं ये भी कह रहा हूं, if you look at the last 25 years, what happened? 97 में चाइना की हैसियत थी कि अमेरिका को आंख दिखा दे, आज है. 98 में हम पे लगे थे सैंक्शंस, उन्होंने विड्रॉ करना पड़ा. और सैंक्शन, फॉरगेट अबाउट द सैंक्शंस इन न्यूक्लियर डील, दे हैव गिवन अस द वेवर इन द एनएसजी, इन द न्यूक्लियर सप्लायर ग्रुप. So what I am saying, that we are emerging. And definitely it is for US to think if in your establishment these type of forces have got your inroads. As it has been mentioned in the book, कि Marxism एक न्यू फॉर्म लेकर आ रहा है वहां पर, तो आपको समझना होगा. Otherwise the future is what is there. You look at the last 25 years, you will be able to understand what is going to be the next 25 years. And one more thing, finally, I would like to say, not taking too much of time and leaving more time for question and answer session. एक बार बहुत पहले की बात है, दत्ता जी के एक स्पीच में मैंने एक एग्जाम्पल सुना था जो आज हमको भाषण देते हैं. He has given us parallel between the Kambu and Columbus. Columbus landed in US. And they have physically eliminated all the native Indians. Very few has been left. And this is the culture you represent. On the eastern side, there is a country, Cambodia, जिसका पुराना नाम था कंबुज, क्योंकि कंबु ऋषि वहां पे गए थे. We have civilized them and an entire race is there as it is. So that is the difference. But unfortunately, we are not able to understand and have the confidence to say As Prakash ji has said, that the central agencies, we are not privy to information what central agencies are other doing, but definitely they will be having a strict vigil whatever is going on. That is one aspect. What the government and external affairs ministry should do, yes, of course, this is one aspect. And what we have to do, this is also one aspect. In this, I would like to quote स्वपन दास जी ने बहुत अच्छी बात कही थी, शतरंज के खिलाड़ी 1857. मैं एक दूसरी मूवी के बारे में उल्लेख करना चाहता हूं, बचपन में देखी थी, जुनून, वो भी 1857 के ऊपर बनी थी. जुनून में एक सीन है, अगर आप याद करिएगा, उसमें दिखाया गया 1857 की अपराइजिंग का समय है और लखनऊ का सीन है. एंड द ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट की वाइफ और बेटी ने एक नवाब साहब के यहां पर शरण ले रखी है. दो नवाब साहब शशि कपूर बने थे और उनकी वाइफ ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट की वाइफ बनी थी. अब ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट की वाइफ बैठी है और नवाब साहब की वाइफ बैठी है. वन इज अ मुस्लिम, अनदर इज क्रिश्चियन. अब जो वहां बर्तन धो रही है वो हिंदू है, मेड. अब जो ब्रिटिश रेजिडेंट की वाइफ कहती है कि हमारा राज बचेगा कि नहीं. अब देखिए वो क्या कहती है, जो बर्तन मांजने वाली, नहीं तुम लोगों का राज रही, मतलब हिंदी में, नॉर्मल हिंदी में बोले दे रहा हूं. उसने कहा तुम लोगों का राज रहेगा, क्योंकि जब सीता माता गई थी अशोक वाटिका में तो बहुत से राक्षसियों ने उनकी सेवा की थी, तो उन्होंने वरदान दिया था कि जाओ कलयुग में एक समय ऐसा आएगा कि तुम लोगों का भी कुछ समय के लिए राज हमारी धरती पे होगा. तो तुम तो सीता माता के आशीर्वाद पे राज कर रहे हो. इसका मीनिंग क्या है? व्हेन यू आर एट द लोएस्ट लेवल ऑफ योर पॉलिटिकल सब्जुगेशन, योर इनर कॉन्फिडेंस इज सो हाई, you are not mentally subjugated. But unfortunately, these type of things which Rajiv ji has mentioned, they are trying to make us mentally subjugated. मैं पूछना चाहता हूं, 47 से पहले, हम आजादी से पहले हमारे अंदर जो जनरेशंस थी उनमें सेल्फ कॉन्फिडेंस ज्यादा था अबाउट अवर कल्चर, या अब रह गया? तो हमें दोनों चीजों से बचना है. मार्क्सिज्म ने भी और मार्केट ने भी, सबने हमारे उसको बहुत अच्छी तरीके से कवर अप किया है. इसलिए आप सिर्फ ये समझिए कि इन्होंने स्नेक इन द गंगा कहा है. तो हमने सिर्फ ये कहा कि गंगा में काफी पानी बहा है पिछले 25 सालों में, गंगा प्यूरिफाई भी हो रही है. और वो प्यूरिफिकेशन इसलिए भी जरूरी है कि बहुत दिनों तक कबूतर उड़ते रहे थे, अब चीते भी छोड़े जा रहे हैं, ये भी बहुत जरूरी था. देखिए कई बार क्या होता है कि हम लोग इस माइंडसेट में आ जाते हैं कि जो हमारी हिंदू फिलॉसफी है, डेफिनेटली देयर इज नो पैरेलल टू इट. क्योंकि हमने कभी किसी दूसरे पर अटैक नहीं किया, हमने हर आइडिया को एम्ब्रेस किया है. इसीलिए उसी वजह से ऐसा होता है कि हमने तो चरवाक दर्शन को भी लिया, हमको जो क्रिटिसाइज करे उसने भी किया. राजीव जी तो इस विषय के बहुत अच्छे ज्ञाता हैं. हमारे यहां ऐसे भी सेक्ट हैं जिन्होंने कहा त्रयः वेदस्य कर्तारा धूर्तो भांड निशाचरा. वेद के पढ़ने वाले 3, धूर्त, भांड और निशाचर, स्टिल पार्ट ऑफ अस. बट इसका मतलब यह नहीं है कि हमारी सहिष्णुता, हमारी उदारता को कोई यह समझ ले कि हमारे अंदर शक्ति नहीं. और वो शक्ति हमारे अंदर है और वो शक्ति हमको समझनी भी चाहिए, तब हम उस विषय के ऊपर जा पाएंगे. अब मैं आता हूं फाइनल पॉइंट पे, जो मैंने कहा था, वाई इंडिया. आपने गजवाए हिंद सुना होगा. वाई नॉट गजवाए चाइना विच इज बिगर कंट्री देन अस? वाई नॉट गजवाए रशिया? वाई नॉट गजवाए यूरोप? वाई ओनली गजवाए हिंद? द रीजन इज हमारे अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है, हमें कंफ्यूजन है कि हमारे पास क्या पावर है. इंडिया इज द स्पिरिचुअल कॉन्शियस वाइब्रेशन सेंटर ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. एवरीबडी एल्स अंडरस्टैंड्स कि द मोमेंट आई कैप्चर दिस सेंटर, आई एम एबल टू कैप्चर द कॉन्शियसनेस ऑफ द इंटायर वर्ल्ड. बस हमारे अंदर कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं है. वो कॉन्फिडेंस हमको अपने अंदर समझना होगा. हमें बिल्कुल आंसर मिल जाएगा कि ये गजवाए हिंद या जो भी इंडिया पर मार्क्सिस्ट का अटैक, इंडिया पर ही मार्केट का अटैक, इंडिया पर ही मिशनरी का अटैक, और ये सब के सब इंडिया को ही कंट्रोल करना चाह रहे हैं, वो हमें अच्छी तरीके से समझ में आ जाएगा. बस हमारी वो स्थिति, जैसे हनुमान जी अपनी शक्ति भूले हुए थे, अब शक्ति याद आएगी तो असुरों का संहार वही करते हैं. सो फाइनली आई वुड लाइक टू से जस्ट वन थिंग. स्नेक्स बहुत हैं, मगर हम ये भी याद दिलाना चाहते हैं, हम वो सभ्यता हैं जिसने सांपों को भी दूध पिलाते हैं नाग पंचमी पे. मगर हम वो भी सभ्यता हैं जहां राजा जन्मेजय का सर्प सत्र भी करते हैं कि ये ऐसा हवन करते हैं कि सारे सांप आकर उसमें समाप्त भी हो जाते हैं. तो दूध भी पिलाते हैं परंपरा हमारी मित्र, किंतु नाग यज्ञ का विधान नहीं भूले हैं. मगर वो कैसे होगा? भगवान शंकर सबसे ज्यादा विष धारण करते थे, मगर गंगा अवतरण तभी हुआ था जब वो अपनी जटा पे सब कुछ सहन करने की क्षमता रख पाए थे. तो हमारी स्वतंत्रता के अमृत महोत्सव में जब तक हमारे अंदर वह शक्ति नहीं होगी कि स्वर गंगा भी अरे भगीरथ यत्नों से भूतल पर आती, किंतु शीश पर धारण करने शिव शंकर की शक्ति चाहिए। स्वतंत्रता को सार्थक करने शक्ति का आधार चाहिए। तो इसलिए फाइनली सिर्फ ये कह के बात समाप्त करता हूं कि वॉट एवर इज बीन रिटन इन द बुक इज पॉइंटिंग आउट टुवर्ड्स अ वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट नेफेरियस डिजाइंस पॉइंटेड टुवर्ड्स इंडिया. It has to be dealt both with physically, mentally, constitutionally, but also we should have a confidence that we are the country, we are the civilization which has survived from the ages unknown in the world, and we are the country civilization. If we have survived, then it is the theory which they have given, survival of the fittest. So definitely if we have survived, it means we are having some fittest element. Just identify the fittest element, just put up those things and have confidence that the time is coming which is of ours, and we should deal those things with firmness. And one sentence I would say, गौरवशाली था भूत, भविष्यत भी महान है, अगर संभालें आप उसे जो वर्तमान है. थैंक यू.
बहुत अच्छे सुधांशु जी, आप वक्ता तो हैं ही प्रचंड, लेकिन आपने कई सारे तथ्य भी रखे। पर मैं यही कहूंगा कि गंगा के तट पर बरगद का वृक्ष है जिसकी जड़ें मजबूत हैं, या फिर गंगा पर बहती हुई लकड़ी का वो टुकड़ा जिसका ठोर ठिकाना नहीं है। आज आपने कहा कि मेंटली फिजिकली सब कुछ करना है, पर सोशली हमें बहुत कुछ करने की आवश्यकता है। ये सोशल एस्पेक्ट है जिसको कि हमें समझने की आवश्यकता है। वी विल थ्रो इट ओपन टू दैट, बट आई एम गोइंग टू से दत्ता जी एंड ऑल्सो स्वपन दास गुप्ता जी क्विकली get their thoughts after listening to the authors and the other panelists. Datta ji, one aspect is कि RSS यहाँ कहाँ फंस गया इसमें? ये इसमें सबको डिसमेंटलिंग ग्लोबल हिंदुत्व में भी RSS पर अटैक है, यहाँ पर भी कास्ट सिस्टम पर भी RSS पर अटैक है. And somewhere in Breaking India, when he wrote, he said that it's not a Hindu-Muslim binary. It's the church. The money is coming from the church. Even now, 1995 का एक लेजिस्लेशन है जिस पर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अभी सेंटर को कहा है, वेयर दे आर सेइंग कि SC/ST कोटा में open it up not to just Hinduism and its offshoots, that is Buddhism and Sikhism. The SC quota should be open to Christians. Now the moment that happens, then Dalit Christians, then caste का game कहाँ गया? That narrative will stop. आपके thoughts?
मैं तो पहली चीज है कि पुस्तक पर डिस्कशन होगा कि बाकी आरएसएस पर होगा। आरएसएस पर होगा
नहीं आरएसएस, क्योंकि इस किताब में जो भी अटैक्स हैं वो डायरेक्टली इनडायरेक्टली सब वहीं आ रहे हैं।
आरएसएस फंसा नहीं है, आपने कहा ना आरएसएस कहाँ फंस गया, आरएसएस फंसा नहीं है, आरएसएस फंसे हुए लोगों को छुड़वाने के लिए है और वही कर रहे हैं। अभी तक जो सुधांशु जी ने बताया ना वही था। कई चीजें जो रेज किए हैं उसके बारे में ठीक है डिटेल में बात हो सकती है, लेकिन हर देश को, हर नेशन को एक समय आता है, अब वो अवेयरनेस भारत में मैं आपको बताऊंगा, यहाँ और यहाँ बैठे हुए सभी लोगों को इस प्रकार के एक आरएसएस आदमी यहाँ बैठना ये भी मंजूर नहीं था, आज मंजूर है, वो उसका कारण आरएसएस ही है।
बट मैं आपसे ये भी जानना चाहूंगा, यू वुड एग्री दैट the fact that you have top corporates in our country thinking that they would rather spend money in Harvard rather than push for education, our civilizational education in our own country, is that a cause for concern for you when it comes out in this book?
इसलिए तो मैंने कहा, I have said in my short speech, that is what I said. Many times Indians, knowingly or unknowingly, वो फंस गए, वही आरएसएस नहीं फंसा था, वो लोग फंस गए थे, तो उनको वहां से लिबरेट करने के लिए राजीव जी कर रहे हैं और राजीव जी के साथ हम खड़े हैं।
Swapan ji, what's the solution? Intellectual, see the crowding of the discourse. Now the discourse comes into the academia. Then from हाँ जी,
वो इन्होंने बताया, good people also many time unknowingly them फंस गए होंगे, इसलिए देखिए अवेयरनेस हैज टू क्रिएटेड एवरीवेयर, ये करना ही पड़ता है। और राजीव जी एंड हिज वर्क, अर्लियर वर्क्स आल्सो, इस प्रकार के वो करते आए हैं और लोग जो इसको पढ़ेंगे उनको भी समझ में आएगा सच में कहाँ स्नेक्स है और गंगा को कहाँ प्यूरिफाई करना है, ये ध्यान में आएगा।
तो कहीं प्यार से एक, सॉरी सोपन जी, एक छोटा मैसेज जाएगा उन लोगों को जो इनको थोड़ा पराया ट्रीटमेंट देते हैं, बोलते हैं कंट्रोवर्शियल है, इनसे इनको एम्बेसी में मत आने दीजिए, इनको बोलने मत दीजिए। सोपन जी।
May I just strike a contrary note? It's what should be the response to these challenges? One is to shut ourselves off from the world. I don't agree with that. Today we are in a situation where for the first time we are a factor in the world, where our companies are leaving their footprints in various parts of the world, where we are no longer content with just riding an ambassador car, where the aspirations of people are growing, where we are not lagging behind in technology. We need some improvement so that we become innovators ourselves. These are the broad challenges which we confront. In this situation, if we retreat and say we will have nothing to do with outside academia, now first let us ask ourselves one or two questions. Why did these people donate so much money overseas? Part of it is over bhav bharega. That without anything. But the Tatas have also funded a lot of institutions in India. You go to Delhi School of Economics, there's a beautiful library, the Ratan Tata Library, which is there for such a long time. There are some of them Mahindras have also funded various things. All these people have funded various things in India. Couple of things let's just flag off. One is, why in India did we devalue liberal education, liberal arts education? We devalued it totally. We devalued it to the extent we said we need to acquire a scientific temper, as if liberal arts education was going against that. We emphasized the temper, we forgot about the science. Then we said we only need technical education. Vocational education. Vocational education is always good for your neighbor's child. So we made these various distortions, and some of our universities also lacked standards. Let's be honest about it. So the compulsion for people to go overseas, to study there, was even very much there. I have personally spent 12 years in overseas universities in the UK. And I'm very glad I went there. I have nothing to, I'm not being defensive about it. So just because the point is, we are now in a position where we can influence things. So to retreat from there is not the thing. Secondly, sometimes you get into, when the political situation comes up, these people make absurd claims. I have often found, being in the nitty-gritty of politics, I have found it preposterous when they say this regime is anti-Dalit. Half the time in Bengal, where I do most of my politics, most of our support comes from OBC and Dalit communities. Most of the support comes from there. And yet they keep telling us. So the point is, empirical reality and their theoretical formulations have nothing to do with each other. So they've already got a construct. And these constructs, they will keep perpetuating. So these things have to be recognized, acknowledged. But the more important thing is strategic thinking on board. Our embassies have not taken these on board as yet. It is a fact. What I agree with Rajiv Malhotra, it was not considered a priority. They knew about it, but it was never considered a priority. Secondly, they said, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to go after them? Are we going to have strictures against them? You don't have to have strictures against them. Strictures invite retribution. What you have to do is have a whisper. You don't have to have diplomacy always on the front foot. You just have to tell them, yes, your company is doing this. Leave it at that. 95% people get the message. Nothing is done so obviously. And this is true for foreign companies who want to invest. Sometimes you just have to say, yes, yes, you do some very interesting work there also. People get the message. Our diplomacy has to be more subtle. We have to play the rules. We have to learn a lot from there. Sometimes we have to learn a little bit from the Chinese also. Thank you.
I can only say from close quarters, I witnessed that this is happening. So it is happening. First person, I am witness, I born witness. Recently, I was somewhere and I saw that this is happening. Subtly, it is happening. The message is being sent across. So a lot that should have been done perhaps a decade ago, it's starting now.
I'll give you a small example. You know, without naming names, we used to employ people who were called chief economic advisors. They were very qualified people. But most of them came to India to see India as a case study. India was not a country. For us, there's a lot of emotional investment in India. But for them, it was a case study. Nowadays, we employ people who are chief economic advisors who don't have tenured positions in US universities, who bring their families, whose families are already here, and for whom India is not a case study.
Good one there. Sopanji, thank you very much. So quickly, I've got a few questions here. So no hand raising. The questions are here. We've got limited time. We're supposed to be till 8:15, but I'm going to push this by about another 15 minutes and take a few questions, Rajivji. The first one for Rajivji, Vijayaji, and it's taking pot shots at the media business. So that's why I'm going to take this on me. So I'm going to ask you, what is the role of the media in enabling the quote-unquote snakes? How does a news organization remain neutral while standing up to snakes?
You know, there's a chapter here on the media department, Newman and Pulitzer at Harvard, where what we are showing is a program to bring journalists, train them in their brainwashed system. Actually, it's also done, the British Council doing it a long time, but now the Americans have picked it up on a very big scale. Harvard is the center of that. So it's very important for the Indian ministry, whichever is in charge of all this, to see what is their syllabus, why are they teaching this. It's a very poisonous, toxic kind of a pedagogy and syllabus they're teaching to our journalists. And so when the briefing is on India, that briefing is a very colored briefing in my opinion. So I feel that that is the source and that has to be addressed somehow. Why don't we have a very prestigious world-class media university where we are teaching our view to journalists from everywhere in the world, including our own? Why aren't we able to do that? Why is it prestigious for our people to go to Harvard and get that thappa, or to Columbia and get that thappa and come back? That I think is the problem.
True, very well said, sir, because we always look at a worldview from the eyes of America or Britain.
Yes.
There's no India worldview.
Yes.
And we don't tell other people what our worldview is. We then go and come back and parrot their worldview. That's what happens. Yes. The other thing is, there's another follow-up question to this, that Harvard University has become a fact checker of almost all subjects of the Indian Academy. So do we have an alternative?
We should have an alternative. Right now we don't. We do not have an alternative. That is why I keep mentioning this book, that by default, as a practical reality, they are the Vishwaguru. Because they decide what it is not. You know, it's very interesting. I was in a discussion where they were talking about whether Tibetan language is part of the Sanskrit, is it an Indian family language or not? And believe it or not, these are Sanskrit people, Indian people, the consensus at the end of it was कि Harvard को पूछ लेंगे. Harvard को we should call so and so at Harvard. He knows all these things. That's same.
Another question to you only, Rajivji. This is, could you please speak a little about the connection between this book and your last one? That's the AI and the future of power. So how is AI being used by this?
Okay, I'm glad somebody asked this, because one of the big things Harvard is doing is collecting this massive amount of data, which is used in AI to control, to anticipate, to build models of Indian behavior. So the AI comes in very handy, because the AI book is where I explain how artificial intelligence is dependent on data, because you have to train machines on data. And this data, India is very data rich, but India is not using its own data. Other people are taking it. So Harvard is one of the largest places where Indian data ends up, and misused by them, kind of weaponizing the data, weaponizing their AI, is a loss of sovereignty. I feel it's a loss of sovereignty, and Harvard is a big player in that.
Vijay, this is, how does a nation like USA, 26/11/2001, and now Ilhan Omar in 2021, so how is this possible?
I think the US is also extremely divided because, like Sudhanshu ji said, with the famous quote of Hillary Clinton, when you raise snakes in your backyard, it can bite you as well, not just your neighbors. So I think the US has had a shift, and a lot of wokeism has come into all aspects, institutional, even in churches, wokeism has come in. So this idea of critical race theory is in corporate training, it's in churches, it's in the government, it's even in the US Navy. So, and therefore the shift that you see, and US is, I guess, very divided, a very divided nation. As you know, it's sad to see how divided it is.
But multiple questions here. One question to Datta ji, aapki taraf bhi aaya hai. Pashupati ji, Vinayak Pashupati ji has written a question on the HRNC Act. That's a different platform, but I note your question because I also want to ask them someday. But right now we'll go to, how can Rashtra Dharma be really taught in a society where a child right from the beginning is taught how he or she is different from following other faiths. So this entire fight of faiths, national consciousness is not there. So how do you teach when we are all fighting with each other on our own caste levels, community levels, individual faith levels? How do you teach Rashtra Dharma? So that's a question that's come.
Nation first has to be. Rashtra Dharma can be taught if it is practiced by the leaders of various walks of life. Not only political leaders, I mean the social leaders, cultural leaders. If they practice it, then it need not be taught in a classroom. But in the classroom also it has to be taught when the nation first feeling is there in all circles. Then that is.
What I wanted to ask was that, how can this Rashtra Dharma can be taught in the society where, right from the beginning the child is taught how you are different from people who are following other faiths.
Following other faiths.
I have answered, I think.
Yeah. So the whole idea is that you bring a concept of nationhood which has to be instilled from the homes and also in our educational institutions. Back to Rajiv ji.
Thing is, how it is taught in any other country, in Japan or Germany? See, that's the thing. See, in this country, from the beginning, we have been saying that different cultures, religions and languages, the tendency is to see that there is a discrimination. If that is taken off, then the question of we belong to one nation, we are one people, these things will automatically evolve. But from the day one, if you are teaching those things, then that is not going to happen. This has to be corrected. So Rashtra Dharma can be taught not only through textbooks, it has to be practiced in the society by all. Then the textbook thing will be useful. Otherwise, it will be only in the textbook and not in the society.
See, there's a huge role that society also plays. We as a collective do play. Sudhanshu ji wanted to say something. Rajiv ji, then one final question coming your way.
आपने जो पूछा है वो तो कई बार बताया जाता, हम ध्यान ही नहीं देते। पूजा करते हैं तो क्या बोलते हैं? गंगे च यमुने च गोदावरी सरस्वती नर्मदे सिंधु कावेरी जलेस्मिन सन्निधिम कुरु। ऑल द रिवर्स आर टच्ड। जो सिंधु आज हमारे पॉलिटिकल लैंडस्केप का हिस्सा नहीं है, जो सरस्वती जो हिस्ट्री का हिस्सा नहीं है, वो भी इतना ही अगर बच्चों को समझ में आ जाए, दिस इज आवर नेशन जस्ट विद अ ड्रॉप ऑफ वाटर इन योर हैंड।
Very good.
Now, we've been told that our education system is corrupted, and to quote Vijaya ji, there's a lot of kupai or dirt. So how do you clean this out? How do you sort this out?
Vijaya.
How do you counter sort it out? Yeah.
So I think the first step is to incorporate Indic civilizational knowledge and make it relevant, not just nostalgia, but make it relevant. There is some effort being done in IIT Mumbai. You have Professor Ramasubramaniam in the social sciences group. It's just a one-man show, literally, trying to do some of this. So we can incorporate, Indian Ganita Shastram, Sanskrit as a language should be brought. Chamukrishna Shastri ji is here, and I should, has done a lot of work on the ground. 30 years ago, walking door to door, village to village, developed an easy form of Sanskrit that we can all use, and that has revived Sanskrit to a living language. But we can do more. We can bring it as a language that links everybody, and it's beneficial for everybody. In fact, it gives you a very logical way of thinking. So I think we should sort of rid Sanskrit of all the prejudice that goes with the word Sanskrit. And then also remove, at least this is in the school level, so history books is something that we haven't done much about. So Itihasa has to be written, rewritten, and for that you need scholarship, which means higher ed should be also looked at. Rajiv ji has talked about the civilizational grand narrative project. We have to have a grand narrative that we look up to, and from that comes all of this. So.
Itihasa, that means as it happened, not as it has been retold or doctored. So that is one critical point. The other aspect is Shastri ji is in an empowered position now. So to do something very, very significant, so hopefully you'll chart the road forward to revive Bharatiya Bhashas, जैसे उसको कहा जाता है Bharatiya Bhashas. But Rajiv ji. नहीं तो देखिए, मैंने तो जब मौका मिला मैंने हिंदी में बात किया है। मैं तो ऐसा कभी, मेरे भाषा से कोई परहेज नहीं है। अब हमने तो इंग्लिश को भी इंडियनाइज कर दिया है, वो तो है, आप मानते हैं उसको। तो अब क्या करें, हमारा तो वायरिंग गलत हो गया ना सर, आगे अगले जनरेशन का वायरिंग ठीक करना पड़ेगा ना, वही तो इम्पोर्टेंट है।
वैसे भाषा में भी एक मजेदार बात है कि आप आंख बंद करिए और इंग्लिश बोल रहा हो, एक आदमी कश्मीरी पंजाबी हो, एक बिहारी हो, एक तमिल केरलाइट हो, आप आंख बंद करके बता देंगे ये फलाना बोल रहा है, बिकॉज ऑफ प्रॉब्लम ऑफ एक्सेंट। और वही है कि संस्कृत का श्लोक बोला जा रहा हो तो आप नहीं बता सकते कि ये कामाख्या में बोला जा रहा है, कि तिरुपति बालाजी में बोला जा रहा है, कि वैष्णो देवी में बोला जा रहा है। एंड लास्टली, हम सब विष्णु सहस्त्र नाम, ललिता सहस्त्र नाम, हनुमत सहस्त्र नाम पढ़े। मतलब आई चैलेंज, दुनिया में कोई लैंग्वेज बताइए जहां एक शब्द के 1000 पर्यायवाची हो और उसमें से एक भी दूसरी लैंग्वेज से ना लिया गया हो। अब उसके बाद हम अपनी लैंग्वेज को ना सोचें तो हमसे बड़ा दुर्भाग्य किसका है।
ये अलग एक डिस्कशन हम करेंगे लंबा। But now, IITs, final question. IITs have started various, Karthikeya Mishra is asking this question, IITs have recently started various social science departments. Do you see this as a solution to fight the Harvard discourse?
No, I see it as a poison being imported, because you cannot, here this is a very serious problem we've raised here. India introducing liberal arts, imported liberal arts, is actually the whole problem of recolonizing. India needs to create, first of all, the Indian theory of liberal arts, which is the 64 kalas which we've taught in our own tradition. Usko revive kiya jaye, because if you look at the ancient philosophy, the logic, the pedagogy, all the arts, all the Natashastra, all these aesthetics theories, the Indian liberal arts is a very sophisticated part of our culture. So, but we've forgotten that. It got colonized, so it got replaced because of language and all kind of things. It got replaced by British and European thought. Indian social sciences
Indian social sciences, we have to create Indian sociology, Vedic based sociology we have to create. We have to create Indian mind sciences, the whole Adhyatmic idea, mind sciences, Indian approach to psychology. So if you can create all of these disciplines from the Indian traditions, revive them because they have existed, you will have what I call the Indian liberal arts. And this Indian liberal arts is what we should have, and we should export it to the world. There is a competition of civilizations through the liberal arts categories, because that is what conveys the civilization message to other people. So I think the IITs bringing liberal arts in social sciences, because we do not have our own matured and ready to go, therefore we are bringing by default Western social sciences. So IIT Madras, I'm going to be going there, but I don't want to criticize them. But all of these places are bastion of ultra left wing. That is what has attacked. So we are destroying IITs with social sciences because we do not have the Vedic social sciences in place.
एक मिनट जी, 64 कला वगैरह आपने बताया, ये करना चाहिए. अब क्या हो रहा है न्यू एजुकेशन पॉलिसी में इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम के बारे में, इसीलिए आग्रहपूर्वक बताया गया. एंड नाउ अंडर AICT लीडरशिप, इंडियन नॉलेज सिस्टम के लिए ब्रांचेस हैज बीन ऑलरेडी ओपन एंड थिंग्स हैव स्टार्टेड कमिंग अप. Number 2, in NIMANS in Bangalore, Center for Conscience Studies, the first of its kind in the whole country, that has been started. Center for Conscience Studies, sir. Integrated medicine under NIMANS. NIMANS people were not ready to give a PhD course registration for an Ayurvedic student. But one student, Dr. Kishore, he challenged why it cannot be done. And NIMANS had ultimately, they accepted it. And he did his PhD, being an Ayurvedic postgraduate, did his PhD in NIMANS, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosurgery, Neurosciences. There, the Center for Conscious Studies has already been started. So things are changing. We should not say only nothing is happening. They are happening. But all these years, that's what I said, decolonization has to take place. And recolonization should not happen, okay, fine. But that also there. Because of the historic baggage, these things have been happening all these years. Now the things are changing. आयुर्वेद में कहते हैं आपके 50 साल की बीमारी है तो उसके लिए कम से कम 10 साल के इलाज तो करना पड़ेगा. ये बीमारी 150 साल की है, इसलिए इसके बीमारी के लिए आप 8 साल में पूरा होना चाहिए, ऐसे सोच रहे हैं. नहीं होगा सर.
नहीं, ऐसा नहीं. 8 साल में मैं कह ही नहीं रहा हूँ कि होना चाहिए.
बार बार यही होता है ना, ऐसे नहीं है. आपने पूछा कितने लोगों का यह है. ये सारी चीजें हमारे भी मेंटालिटी, माइंडसेट, ये धीरे धीरे चेंज हो रहा है, तो इसलिए ये हो रहा है. तो अभी सिचुएशन इज नाउ, ए डायरेक्शन इज बीइंग गिवन टू द कंट्री. समाज भी समझ रहा है. हाँ, ये भी हो रहा है. इसलिए थिंग्स आर आल्सो चेंजिंग, सिस्टम्स हैव चेंज. सो नाउ द थिंग इज ब्यूरोक्रेसी. हम कह रहे हैं द लैटरल एंट्री हुआ, उसको अप्रिशिएट करो. So from the industry, from society, the government has decided to take secretary level, joint secretary level people from lateral entry. So this is something new, it's happening. Capacity building commission has been established by this government. So इसलिए बहुत सारे चीज सरकारी लेवल पर हो रहे हैं. Many things are happening in the society level also. People are also thinking now. It's happening. So ऐसे नहीं कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है. इसलिए we should not go to the another extreme, as rightly Swapanda put it, isolation, closing our doors for the whole world, and then we save our country. I think this is not a welcome idea. It cannot happen. So we cannot do that. We have to interact. We have to develop our capacities. We should challenge the world, whether it is China or US. Why not? We are capable enough. Only thing is, the enough push and enough strength has to be created in the society. That is why the intelligent people will have to do this, and then we are capable of doing it, no doubt. The only thing is, a conducive atmosphere has to be created in the society, and that is being created because of such books, because of such interactions. It is going to happen.
Nobody is disagreeing with you, but the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, respectfully, yes, we must go and counter. Yes, we must go and give it back to them. But to give it back to them, we must know. This is where the problem today, Dattaji, the problem today is people want to give it back, but they do not know how. And they do not know what to say. they do not know, how do I counter a 3-word narrative? How do I counter this in 3 words? So to counter it in 3 words, I need to know 3 lakh words. So this snake in the Ganga is 3 words, but there are 2,25,000 words that's come to this conclusion.
All these years we have been taught like that. That's why our people did not know. No, they are trying to open their eyes.
Absolutely.
That's why.
Datta Babu, next time we'll argue in Kannada and Hindi, not in English. Sanskrit. That I'll try. Effort lagana padega. But final question. What are the 2 or 3 things you have not talked about solution, Rajiv ji? We've all discussed what is possible. I think the biggest challenge is society. So I'm going to ask you 2 or 3 things which we can do immediately, which can help push this entire aspect of countering this wave.
So if I had a wish, if someone said you have a wish, what would you wish? I would wish that just 3 or 4 of our billionaires get together and make a decision that they're going to deal with Harvard on our terms. They're going to, just like they would in an industry, so just like the pharma industry said, how can you not allow our vaccines? We stood up. We've done this in other industries. So in this whole field of philanthropy of India studies, actually our billionaires have underestimated their power and clout in Harvard. Harvard needs these guys very badly. Imagine what would happen in terms of Harvard's brand if it came out that 4 Indian billionaires have pulled out on grounds of bias and prejudice of Harvard. They would lose their credibility. They would lose their brand value. They cannot afford that. We don't realize how much strength we have. We just are scared. We think, oh, they're doing us a favor taking our money. That is, we think that they are honoring us because they're accepting my check of $50 million and giving me a photo opportunity. We have inferiority complex. So these billionaires need to basically take on Harvard. They need to first constitute a team of civilizational experts to counsel them to say this is what Harvard doing right, this is what they're doing wrong, this is what our position should be. That should be done in private. Somebody should organize this kind of a thing. And then the billionaires have so much power and clout on the world stage nowadays, in the last few years it has happened, that if they were to take this stand, they will be heard and Harvard will change, because the same thing was done by the Chinese and Harvard changed towards China a decade ago.
Very well said, sir. So you're trying to do what Jambavan did to Hanuman. You're trying to do to the billionaires of our country. Wake up to the power.
Yes.
Big round of applause to the authors and to our panelists. Fantastic session. Very, very engaging. Thank you very much. Fabulous, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
And now request, just 5 minutes, may I request Shri Anuruddh Chakravarti ji, Director, Blue One Ink Publishers, to propose the vote of thanks.
Namaste. To start with, I would like to thank the Honorable Chief Guest, Sri Datta Hosable ji, keynote speakers Swapan Dasgupta ji, eminent authors Rajiv ji and Vijaya ji, distinguished Sri Prakash Singh ji, Sudhanshu Trivedi ji, and Anand Narasimhan ji for taking time from their busy schedules and making this session so insightful and interesting. After this profound and scintillating discussion, I doubt any one of us would be interested in a long-winded thank you note. So brevity would be the best recourse for me when addressing a room full of such erudite people. I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Rajiv ji and Vijay ji, who through their work, Snakes in the Ganga, have shared ideas, insights, and analysis that hold the potential for throwing light on the existing and future geopolitics of not just India, but the entire world. The freedom and openness with which they have expressed the thought-provoking ideas are breathtaking in their scope and brilliant in their treatment. This is the kind of depth we seek when we talk about Blue One Ink and its aspirations in publishing. I do understand that as the representative of the Blue One Group in general and Blue One Ink in particular, it becomes incumbent on my part to share with you the kind of publishing organization we are and what was the need to start another publishing house when most of the industry is still going through difficult times. We as a publishing house aim to embody the philosophy of the freedom of expression, irrespective of ideologies and isms. That is what we term as promoting conscious literature. Literature where we are able to bring the depth and truth in political life, culture, business, education, human relationships through the written word. As our mentor, Parthoji, points out, Blue One Ink should be a platform for literature that envisions to change the narrative and create a new narrative. Compelling and powerful enough to catch the imagination of the young without politicizing or polluting the mind, keeping it pure through debate and through rationality. We want to grow in a space where all narratives get subsumed, where thinking becomes completely liberated from any kinds of narratives. To create this, we need honest and revolutionary ideas, writing and production. Thus, with this conscious thought, Blue One Ink was born. The aim of bringing such literature to our readers, along with our authors, is of utmost importance to us. For more details about us, I would like you to direct to our website, blueone.ink. To be able to bring such a high-impact project to fruition in less than 2 months from the first time Rajiv ji reached out to me is quite incredible. I would therefore like to take this opportunity to thank all the teams at Infinity Foundation and Blue One Ink. They have delivered a stellar performance. I had a ringside view of these teams putting an enormous amount of effort into coordination, collaboration, and final delivery. This wouldn't have been possible without their dedication and diligent hard work. I would also like to thank the team at Chinmaya Mission for their diligence and rigor for making this event possible. And finally, I would like to thank the audience for making today's event an incredible success. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we wind up, my final 30 seconds. Bhasha, Ganita, Kala and Kalari. A very, very learned person told me these are the 4 foundations of our education and society. And the core for building this was our temple ecosystem. Correct? Now, who controls that temple ecosystem? I'll leave you with that. Thank you very much.
सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. शुभ रात्रि.